Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. You guys seeing the ghost song on Facebook, man? Shit's taking off. I'm shocked. I'm honestly shocked by how well it's doing. Didn't think that many people were ghost song fans, but what a great way to introduce yourselves to Guy and Charles. Or Charles and Guy, however you want to look at it. I don't really care about that kind of shit. You could literally refer to it as Charles's band and Charles is this and Charles is that all day long. It wouldn't bother me. Well, if you try to, he wrote the songs, well, then we might have an issue. Good morning, Jane. Not so plain, Jane. Tell me something good. Tell me that you like it, yeah. Did you get your free download yet? No, you said you're waiting on your computer to be finito or something like that. You're waiting on your laptop. Oh, hang on a second, y'all. It's really gross how the buildup from the water happens on the bottom of your teapots or whatever. Like, what the fuck is that? Why is the calcium building up like that? To get out of here. Don't blame somebody. What's there to talk about? The funny thing is again, like, it's weird that people always want to bring it up when I've made the argument 115 times over. I mean, let me ask you this. Why do you believe in submarines? This would be a great question for you. Have you been in a submarine that got taken down 300 meters below the surface and stayed down there for 6 months and without resurfacing and, you know. And I think that the most fascinating element of the submarines thing is, like, again, I guarantee that none of you know who invented the first submarine and when it was invented. What do you think, Jenny? No, I haven't, but I had to study World War II about it. Right, exactly. Come on. All you had to do was study narratives, though. It's just like anything else. You didn't, like, go to the submarine factory and go check out the process and shit like that. You just looked at it. But most people have that World War II mindset, if you will, and that's what you think. But you know when the first submarine was invented. Don't look it up. Don't cheat. Now, do I think we have boats that can go under the surface of the water? Yes. Most of it. You know, there's always going to be something that sticks out. You know, they might be able to go 10, 15 feet below the surface. I mean, I doubt it, but what you should do is what I did. And I tried to prove myself wrong. I got the idea in my head one day and spent quite some time trying to prove myself wrong. Hear about that guy who took the reporter down on one and had murdered her, apparently? Yeah, but again, you don't really know what that story is. This guy invented his own submarine. He built his own submarine. Like, we're just overestimating how easy it is to build a submarine. And stories like that confirm it. Too many videos and photos, and my cousin is in the middle. Okay, seriously, show me the videos. Show me videos of submarines underwater. Show me a video of a camera on the front of a submarine as it dives way down and swims around like a dolphin and then comes back to the surface. You just don't understand, like, you've been duped. There's one video that purportedly shows a submarine moving around underwater, and it's like the camera is fixated like here, and the submarine goes like that. Like, that's all you see. But if you look, it's clearly a model. It's not real. But you would think, like you just made the incorrect point, that with something like submarines, there would be too many photos and, well, photos, one of the videos. And then you also have to keep into consideration that we've been able to fake photographs since we've been able to make them. Right? Though, how would they weld and shit underwater? Yeah, I mean, it's again, do you know who invented the first submarine? Do you know when it was invented? The guy that invented the first submarine is someone everyone should know about. If you know about George Washington, if you know about Ben Franklin, if you know about Nikola Tesla, like, this guy puts them all to shame. This is the most fascinating man in history, and nobody knows who he is. No, we have a Civil War person. Yep, you're wrong. Photograph. Pharaoh staff graph the plan. Sure. No, just say you don't know it. That's all. I'm just looking for your best response. I don't want you to tell me the truth. I know the truth. I'll tell you guys the truth. I just want to see what people have to say. Because just like anything else, I mean, there's multiple narratives at play. Nobody cares what you pedophile Jews think. You can just eat dicks and die for all I care. Look, Thor cheated. I know you cheated because you didn't look at you didn't know that. Then no, I'm dumb. No, you're not dumb. You're dumb in a way that you've been made to be dumb. You're not dumb, but like if you've been, if you're running around talking about Jesus and shit, you're stupid. Be stupid. Stupid. So you're stupid by proxy. And they want us to be as dumb as we can possibly be so that we're much easier to control. But Thor cheated. And he said that it's a guy called Cornelius Drebbel, and that's the truth. Cornelius Drebbel, in 1620, made the first submarine. If that doesn't destroy your whole narrative, stop it. If that doesn't change things up for you right there, just that in itself, then we're on different pages. Jesus is a Jewish fairy tale. Yes, ma'am. Stop it. Yeah. Everything is fairy tale. I mean, how many of you are at the point where you're questioning space travel, where you don't buy the narrative when you figured out we haven't gone to the moon and all that other shit, right? Again, because it's just so commonplace and secondary, you don't think about it, but submarines would be way more difficult than flying. Flying underwater with thousands, millions of pounds of pressure trying to kill you at all times. Pressure that has to be mitigated. You have to, like the whole idea of ballast tanks. Stop that. The whole idea of ballast tanks is just a dumb concept. You would have to have computers doing your ballast tanks. The first nuclear-powered submarine was invented between 1950. In 1952, they decided they needed it. And by 1955, Chaim Rickover, who was a Jew but converted to Protestant, because, that happens, he had created it. They had figured out a way to miniaturize not only a nuclear power plant, but also a desalination plant, because you have to have desalinated water to run the nuclear reactors. That's why they can't just use ocean water. It has to be desalinated. They were able to fit both of those things inside a submarine along with all the rest of the stuff. I don't what's real anymore, and it seems like a problem. You don't know what's right. I'd rather fight for Christians than Jews. Why would you want to fight for either side, though? You do understand that it's not one or the other. At the end of the day, it's, one or the other is the same. Either way you slice it, if you're fighting for Christians, you're fighting for Jews. Christianity is Jewish. It's just what it is. You can not like it all you want, but that's the truth. And I always tell you guys, think about what 1952 through 1955 technology looked like. Airplanes had propellers. Televisions were the size of refrigerators. Refrigerators were ice boxes. Look at what the cars look like. Now you tell me how 1950 technology is building nuclear power submarines. You guys perform this experiment every single time you go to the beach. Just think about this, especially if it's salt water, right? So this 200-pound body, 6 something, 200 pounds something, goes to the beach, %70 water, bones, big heavy bones, muscle. I don't have a lot of fat on me. So how is it that worth of air can keep this big 200-pound body afloat? As a matter of fact, if I want to go to the bottom of the water, I have to exhale all of my air, which only gives me a couple of seconds. But the only way you can actually sink is to let go all of your air. Right? It's a small little cavity right here. This small little cavity keeps this entire body afloat. Think about that. I always tell you guys, take a 2-liter bottle, 2 liter of Coke, 2 liter of Mountain Dew, whatever. Take it sealed and take it to the water. What happens when you throw a sealed 2 liter into the water? I mean, it's 90% liquid at that point, right? There's only that tiny little space at the top that has air in it, or that doesn't have liquid. Obviously, it's carbonated. But for the most part, you would say that 95% of what you're looking at is liquid. Why do the 2 liters float? Why is it when you open the 2 liter and you empty it out, like you could survive for as long as you could without getting eaten or, hunger or whatever, floating on a 2 liter, waiting for somebody to rescue you. An empty 2 liter. Put the tap on it and then just float on it. As a matter of fact, try to swim that 2 liter down. Right? Try to swim that 2 liter down to the bottom of the water. I bet you can't even do it. Even if you're standing in the water, it's only like up to your chest or whatever. Try to take a sealed, you've opened it and now it's just full of air. Try to put that thing down below your feet. I bet you can't do it. You could fill that thing up halfway with water. You're still not gonna be able to pull it all the way down and hold it there. It's not just gonna float, 300 meters below the surface. It's just floating. It's not how it works. Between just your breath, your body, and then the 2 liter, I think I've pretty much debunked submarines. Because, I know a lot of you will say, oh yeah, but the submarine is made of metal and it's super heavy and yada, yada, yada. Have you guys not seen what cargo shipping vessels look like, cargo ships look like? Big, giant metal monstrosities with millions of pounds worth of cargo on them. They just float. They float. If you have any sort of situation where there's air inside of something, it floats. It's going to fight its way to the surface violently. Come on. Come on. No, stop. Stop. Karen, what's happening? Every balloon has a tiny fan in it. Yeah, see what I mean? And so, and the thing is, so history is really interesting in this regard. Because 1620, Cornelius Drebbel makes the first submarine. But nobody's able to replicate the process successfully until World War II, basically. We're talking about 300 fucking years. Stop it. Right? Stop. Talking about 300 years. There's multiple examples of it. Civil War, you know, the acorn or whatever it's called. You know, there's multiple examples of submarines failing. They were never able to properly do it. And you hear other crazy stories, you know, regarding diving bells and shit, but diving bells are a different thing. They're connected to the surface. And even then, they really don't make sense. I mean, if you think about it, you know, how are they able to see underwater? There's another story from 1850. This is basically the first successful submarine after 1620. Stop it. Right? In 1850, apparently someone off the coast of the Bahamas designed a submarine that was able to go 150 feet below the surface, I believe. 150 feet. Could stay underwater for 3 hours. And even had a hatch on the bottom of the submarine that you could open up and harvest oysters and things like that. Just think about that. Right? Just think about how interesting that is. Who among you would be the one to open that for the first time? You're 150 feet below the surface. Your lifeline is this little, somehow they have a pump, a steam pump that's pumping air down into the vessels, again, somehow. And yet, you're down and they go, okay, open the hatch. We'll be all right. You would imagine any slight deviation of the thing, if it tipped sideways a little, like, you know, I understand that if you hold a cup underwater, there's that little pocket and whatever. But if you turn the cup even slightly, air rushes out, water rushes in. And so I think there was 3 successful dives of this submarine. But they understood about compression, all that shit, you know, how to make submarines. But they had no concept of the decompression sickness, the bends. And so when they were ready to go up, they would just pop up to the surface and didn't understand they had to go slowly or they had to decompress afterwards or whatever. And so they would get sick, they would die, you know, whatever. And so after the people got sick for like the 3rd time, they were like, fuck it. And they just left the submarine sitting on the shore where it was abandoned and forgotten about. And then eventually it was like the whole submarine narrative is just like just fucking insane. It is fucking insane. So we are going to first talk about my buddy Cornelius, who I contest is the greatest man in history of the world. And of course he's this guy. Right? Let's listen. Cornelius Jacobzoon Drebbel, 1572 to November 7th, 1633, Belge, was a Dutch engineer and inventor. He was the builder of the first operational submarine in 1620. If that in itself doesn't say something to you, you're just not paying attention, right? You're telling me that this guy was able to make something in 1620 that couldn't be replicated for another 300 years? And you would think like he made the submarine, that's like his claim to fame. Whoa, no. This is one of those polymaths that basically invented everything. Are you filming from a potato? Way to acknowledge yourself as a piece of shit fryer. That's another one of those friar references. You know, they have several, but are you feeling empathy? That's one of theirs. It's how they acknowledge themselves to each other. But, because, I'm going to make this all up anyway. And an inventor who contributed to the development of measurement and control systems, optics, and chemistry. Pretty amazing guy there, huh? And his narrative is just goofy. Cornelius Drebbel was born in Alkmaar, Holland, in an Anabaptist family in 1572. After some years at the Latin school in Alkmaar, you'll see this so much too. So, back in the 15, 16, 17 shit, the universities taught, what they would teach was Latin and Greek. They didn't teach people architecture, engineering, all that shit. They didn't learn that shit. So every time you hear about this guy went to this school or that school, and you look into that school, you find out, like this says, where he was taught Latin. Latin was like a huge deal back then. Again, people didn't go to school for mathematics and engineering, architecture, inventing shit. They didn't do that. They went to school to learn Latin or Greek, usually Latin. And this is in the United States as well. Like, this is all over the world. That's what people went to school for. Doing my lines. After some years at Latin school in Alkmaar, around 1587, so at what, roughly 15, he attended the Academy in Haarlem. The Academy in Haarlem, also located in North Holland. Teachers at the Academy were Hendrik Goltzius, engraver, painter, alchemist, and humanist. Karl von Mander, painter, writer, and humanist. Humanists were big things back then. And Cornelius Zoon. Because the ChatGPT, when they write these narratives, they're lazy and they don't put enough effort in. So ChatGPT will end up reusing names. I mean, we're reading about Cornelius Drebbel, and of the 4 people that have been mentioned so far, 2 have been named Cornelius, and 1 is named Cornelius Zoon. That's how fucking brilliant this all is. Right? I mean, it's so fucking goofy. And of course, his middle name is Jacob Zoon of Haarlem. Drebbel became a skilled engraver on copperplate and also took an interest in alchemy. I mean, seriously, just think about what we're talking about. Think of what you think 1600s look like. 1500s look like. What do you think the 1500s look like when you in your head? What things are there? Is it a much? Are there roads and travel and all that shit? Or do you think of it like basically mud huts and shit? Thatch roofs. Now, obviously, that's not the case. If you look up the Old London Bridge, I just have to do it. It's so fucking crazy. Old London Bridge. So, this is an engraving from 1616 showing Old London Bridge. This is what it looked like back in the 1600s. This is what you pictured, right? Old London Bridge used to have these giant buildings going. People could live. And then look at all the skyscrapers in the background. How many millions of people do you think live in this area? I mean, look at the buildings. These are like 6-story buildings, 8-story, 10-story buildings going across Old London Bridge. Nowadays, it's just like a foot. We can't even come close to doing it. But back then, they somehow were able to. I mean, really. If you see this Old London Bridge and you think there's nothing to that, that's just normal, show me an example of it from now. Right? Oh, jeez. Changed this picture and still thinks it's called supremacist. Supremacist. That's how stupid my opposition is. He continuously writes supremacist. S-U-P-R-E-M-I-S. Supremacist. Like, seriously, would you take anybody seriously that doesn't know how to use words correctly when they're talking shit to you? Look at, you just acknowledged, I'm a pedo. Right? You pedos are just nasty. Anyone who acknowledges themselves to be a friar is telling you. Right? And strangely enough, they always cry about me talking about them. And yet, when I'm not, when I'm exposing another thing, they sure seem to get mad. Isn't it amazing how many submarine enthusiasts there are on here? How many people claim to be well-versed in submarines? None of you know shit about submarines, right? Well, sorry, I wasn't supposed to. He's been down here, so I wasn't.
Oh, bless you. You're just stinky here.
Look at this shit.
Yeah.
Look how bad it is. Especially right here. It just doesn't make any sense. All right. Huh? He ate half of it. He probably could go for the other half by now. He was playing. All right, so I'm gonna keep going. Just give me a second here. And interestingly, again, what are you even going to debunk in this situation? I'm literally reading it to you. There's just nothing for you to debunk. Unless you're saying the narrative is wrong. But this is Old London Bridge. This is what London looked like in 1600. Think about, how do you feed people in this situation? You don't have refrigerators.
No.
No.
How can you live in a world without refrigerators?
Apparently they did for a long time.
There's all their food underground.
You know, sure. I mean,
Just to bury the food.
but even still, burying it isn't going to do you much when you have millions of people. Millions of people have to eat, and that requires a pretty significant undertaking. Just the daily feeding of people. Right? Not to mention all the communication, not to mention the travel, all of it. It just really doesn't make any sense. But let's go back to good old Corny. In 1595, he married Sophia Jan Dorcher Gozelius, the younger sister of one of his teachers, Henrik, and settled in Alkmaar. They had at least 6 kids. Of whom 4 survived. Drebel worked initially as a painter, an engraver, and a cartographer. Oh, man, those are... Like, you would think each one of those things, although they flirt with each other, they're in different worlds. They require different skill sets. right? And so, oh, shit. So, like I said earlier, he ends up being one of these polymaths who can do fucking anything. We don't have people like this nowadays. It's actually pretty strange when you think about like how inept we are when it comes to all this shit. You know, your average person can't do a damn thing. They can't even talk shit accurately. Like, even when they're trying to talk shit, they end up sounding like fools because they can't even, you know, use the right your or there or to, whatever. Like, that's how embarrassing the average person is. And back then, you were like a, you know, if you only did one thing, you were a loser. You had to do like 58 different things to even come close to matching your contemporaries. So, but he was in constant need of money. This is what you're going to find. And you see this again in all of the narratives we're given. This is the same narrative as the Tesla narrative. I don't believe Tesla to be a real person either. You know, I think these are just characters assigned to things to give explanations. And if you can assign the more things you can assign to one person, the less, like, you know, less holes there are, because there's less, you know, the more people involved, the more people involved. You have more family members and cousins and nephews and brothers. You know, there's just more evidence involved when you have more people. So if you just assign it all to one guy, and you say, oh, well, Robert Maxwell's entire family was killed in the hologram, in the holohoax. And so if anybody wants to check his narrative that he grew up in the Jewish ghettos and he was so poor that him and his sister had to share shoes, because, you know, that makes sense. Sharing a pair of shoes, right? Here, you wear the right one today, and then tomorrow I get to wear the right one, okay? Like, just stupid, right? Constant need of money because of the profligate lifestyle of his wife. Citation needed. In 1598, he obtained a patent for a water supply system and a sort of perpetual clockwork. I thought he was a painter, an engraver, and a cartographer. When did he become a fucking perpetual motion machine inventor that we still don't really have yet? In 1600, listen to these dates now. So we've gone from he's born in 1572, around 1587 at 15. He's like, and remember, back then, the schools weren't just like you went to school each day. You went and lived at the school. Parents would basically have children, and that at a young age, they would just send them off to go be at the school. So who was paying for all that? Who was paying for the schools? Who was paying for the food, the clothing, all that shit? It's really interesting. And I mean, just think about like the communications. How were they communicating? How did they set all this up? How did they facilitate all these things? When there was no mail, there was no telephones, there was no nothing. They were communicating by like pigeons, my wife loves to say. That's about it. That's all that would make sense. So he's 15 in 87. At 95, in 1595, he's what, 22? Marries his woman. Then they proceed to have 6 children. In 1598, which is 3 years later, so at like 25, he gets his patent for his water supply system, and perpetual clockwork. Stop. 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 This is yours for a little while. This.
He's got Tula.
Then wake that other fool up.
Oh, kitty.
Yeah.
Drop me.
No, if you got... Yo, drop the cat. If you've got Tula, then forget it. Yeah, because you're so good about that. All right, here, you get your chance. Let's see what you do with it.
Says Nate's getting woken up. Hello, sweet boy. Die pedo.
Die pedos indeed. See, they're raised right. If at the end of the day, you know, if there's anything that you can say about my kids, it's that they think pedos should die, should be killed. Hey, I did a good job. All right. 2 years later in 1600, Drebel was in Middelburg, where he built a fountain at the Noorderpoort. So, I mean, I don't know just how far away these places are from each other. But you have to remember that, like, traveling more than, 5 miles a day was pretty spectacular back then. Quite the undertaking. So now he's in a new place and he develops a fountain. He develops a fountain. 2 years later, too. Like, it's like he's just popping these things up. Oh, man. He said Gay Williams. Now my feelings are hurt. I don't want to do this anymore, guys. I'm done. I'm done. I'm trying to have intelligent conversation, and then he comes at me with such a vicious burn that I've never heard before. He said Gay Williams. Come on, be better. Let's see. In that spectacle-making center, he may have picked up knowledge in the art of lens grinding. Oh, yeah. And later would construct a magic lantern and a camera obscura. Wait, what? It's the 1600s, baby. And we're not talking about... So now he's painter, engraver, cartographer, inventor of perpetual clockwork with a water system. He's made a giant fountain that has to, feed itself. One of those fountains in the middle of a square somewhere. So, like, that would mean you would have to, have access to the underside of things and run your lines and shit. But, again, let's not think too highly on that. He also made the magic lantern and the camera obscura, early versions of cameras that you don't know about. Interesting. Around 1604, 4 years later, the Drebel family moved to England, probably, this is history, probably at the invitation of the new king, James I of England. James the first person to be King James, I guess. Weird that he would pick that name, and then everybody else afterward would be like, I want to be King James too. Why didn't anybody think of this beforehand? He was accommodated at Etham Palace, which, again, you have to think about all the slaves and all the... I mean, my wife watches Game of Thrones. And that, outside of the dragons and shit, is supposed to give you a pretty accurate depiction of what it was like. And a lot of the times you see that. You see, like, they're in shitholes and lit by fire and whatnot. But at the same time, they're also in these giant palaces, and they never really explain how the palaces are built. Outside of, like, the dragons did it. Drebel worked there at the masques, masques, that were performed by and for the courts. So like the masquerades, but they're called masks, I guess. These are plays. So now the guy that's the engraver, the painter, the cartographer, the inventor of the perpetual clockwork, the inventor of the builder of fountains, the inventor of the camera obscura and the magic lantern, now he's working as entertainment for the king, working on plays and stuff like that. Kind of seems like a step down. He was attached to the court of young Renaissance Crown Prince Henry. He astonished the court with a demonstration of a perpetual motion machine, an engine that feeds itself, automatic and hydraulic organs, and his optical instruments. Here's the perpetual mobile, a clock made by Drebel. Here's a picture of it, apparently. This is supposed to be a clock, I guess. Sure did pick some weird shit to put on the picture with it, though. And you have to imagine that every single aspect of this, somebody's not just doodling. They're purposefully drawing these shapes and elements into this, A breasted griffin type figure with a human face and wings, but breasts. I don't know what the second one's supposed to be. I can't even fucking tell. The ring around it, there's the head. It's a snake. You see the snake's head through the ring? Like, it's all just really strange choices made. His fame went through the courts of Europe. In October of 1604, he was in England staying at the palace. In October of 1610, Drebel and his family moved to Prague on invitation of the Roman German Emperor Rudolph II. Again, imagine what moving was like back then, especially somebody like this with like a laboratory and shit, you would assume. German Emperor Rudolph II, who was preoccupied with the arts, alchemy, and occult sciences. Wonder why? It's amazing how much of the world focused on alchemy as like the main thing. Like, it wasn't like alchemy was the secondary. Alchemy was the main thing. And it was literally everywhere across the world. Everyone was interested. They had stories of turning lead into gold and the homunculuses and just all these insane things that by the, turn of the 1900s, turn of the 20th century, we just stopped doing it. Just like we stopped including ether as one of the elements. And ether was the main driver, the main element that made the world work forever. Just like how everyone around the world believed that people got sick from something called miasma, which translates to bad air, until the late 1800s when, and everything happens in the late 1800s. It's truly like astonishing and pretty obvious that something significant happens in the early 18s, late 17s, which, is universally sort of seen as the reset. And then, like, everything that comes after it, it's just so shocking how fucking obvious it all is, man. Here again, Drebel demonstrated his inventions when, in 1611, Rudolph II was stripped of all effective power by his younger brother, Archduke Matthias. Drebel was imprisoned for about a year. Why would that make sense? Especially when he's such a great mind. After Rudolph's death in 1612, Drebel was set free and went back to London in 1613. Unfortunately, his patron Prince Henry had also died, and Drebel was in financial trouble. The guy that can do anything is in financial trouble? How is he moving all across the country if he's in financial trouble? With his glass grinding machine, so now he's manufactured a machine for glass grinding, and we're not really sure where he learned that shit. They think he might have picked it up here or there, but there's not too many people in history before him that were doing this, so not really sure. But he's invented a glass grinding machine. He manufactured optical instruments and compound microscopes with 2 convex lenses for which there was a constant demand. So, this guy invented the microscope. At the request of Roman German Emperor Ferdinand II in 1619, he went to Prague again to tutor his sons and was taken prisoner after the Battle of White Mountain and the capture of Prague in 1620. Wham! That's weird. So, for a significant portion of 1620, he was captured? Wonder when he was building the submarine. In 1622, Constantine Huygens stayed as a diplomat for more than 1 year in England. Now, again, if you are familiar with telescopes and magic lanterns and all this shit, then the name Christian or Constantine Huygens should be familiar to you. It's a pretty prominent name in this circle. It is quite possible, I love when the historical account uses words like this. It is quite possible that he learned the art of glass grinding at this time from Drebel, and that he passed this knowledge to his second son, Constantine Huygens, who became a prominent Dutch mathematician and scientist. So now it's the fathers are passing on the information. Now it's like, oh, they didn't need to go to school. Now they're just learning it from their papas. The English natural philosopher Robert Hooke, maybe that's Ren's dad, may have learned the art of glass grinding from his acquaintance Johannes Saberius Kuffler, the son-in-law of Drebel. So, the historical facts are they may have done this, they may have done that. We don't really know, and that's okay. It's only the historical record. And it'll be interesting here. I'm going to prove a point here in a minute, but just keep that in mind as we keep going. All of these, well, we don't really know. Maybe it kind of was. Maybe this. So when it comes to like the real nuts and bolts details of shit, it always gets kind of fuzzy. When it's the fluffy shit, then they have perfect details. It's interesting how this works. Towards the end of his life, in 1633, Drebel was involved in a plan to drain the fens around Cambridge, while living in near poverty, running an alehouse in England. So by the end of his life, the guy who could do anything was running a bar? What? In near poverty? In keeping with traditional Mennonite practice, Drebel's estate was split between his 4 living children at the time of his death. Wasn't he fucking living in poverty? What estate did he have? So this is where it gets yummy. Drebel was an empirical researcher and innovator. Just listen to this list of accomplishments and ask yourself, why isn't this guy like the guy? Why are you learning about this guy from me and not in school? Why didn't they talk about this guy? Just I can't I cannot oversell how important this guy was. Like, I know lots of times you want to read something, you don't want to like hype it up too much because you might make it seem, too big and then people get disappointed. I know for a fact that by the time I'm done with this, there's nothing I could possibly say that would oversell or overstate this man's importance. Okay? And you're going to understand what I'm saying here. His constructions and innovations cover measurement and control technology, pneumatics, optics, chemistry, hydraulics, and pyrotechnics. He registered several patents with the Dutch Staten-Generaal. He also wrote essays about his experiments with air pressure and made beautiful engravings, including the Severin Liberal Arts on a map of the city of Alkmaar. Like, this engraving is huge. And it's a map, an aerial map. How did they have aerial maps? What were they flying in? He was involved in making theater props, moving statues, and in plans to build a new theater in London. Oh yeah, because those theaters just go up no problem. He worked on producing torpedoes, naval mines, detonators that used glass Bavarian tears, which are like, we still can't really do those. Like, we don't understand how they were able to make these Bavarian tears. And he invented them. And worked on fulminating gold as an explosive. He was known for his perpetual mobile, built an incubator for eggs, and a portable stove oven with an optimal use of fuel, able to keep the heat on a constant temperature by means of a regulator or thermostat. He invented the thermostat. And the idea of a regulator. Like, it's so interesting how people leave out the regulator when they're talking about anything that involves pressure. Because the regulator is what keeps the air pressure, the fuel, the whatever it is, going at the constant, feed without letting it back up and without letting too much out to maintain temperatures or whatever. Let's see. He designed a solar energy system for London, perpetual fire, demonstrated air conditioning, made lightning and thunder on command. And they skip over that one too. They just say it and then they're like, don't worry about it. Have you ever heard of a historical figure that their real life biography suggests that they could make it thunder and lightning on command? Literally, what the fuck are we talking about here? Thunder and lightning on command, that's a pretty fucking big deal. And developed fountains and a fresh water supply for the city of Middelburg. He developed their fresh water supply system in the city of Middelburg while also designing fountains and shit. When was this guy doing all of this? Like, you would think each one of these inventions would take years to develop and get right. Not for Corny. He was involved in draining the moors around Cambridge, the fens, developed predecessors of the barometer and thermometer, and harpsichords that played on solar energy. What? A harpsichord that plays on solar energy? in the 1600s? What the fuck are we talking about here? Like, you can hate me all you want. This doesn't make any sense. And if you're, you got a job to do, I get it. Act.il sent you here, whatever. But if you're not going to even acknowledge how insane all this is, it just goes to show how, truly, like, you're working. You're not an actual real person. Because real people would go, thunder and lightning on command? What the fuck are you talking about? I've never heard of anything like this. I did hear about George Washington's wooden teeth that apparently never happened.
Yeah, that's really stupid.
I mean, it was really stupid to begin with. Wooden teeth sounds like a dumb fucking thing. Mm-hmm. But it's something we all knew. Just like we all knew that Israel was established because of Germany. World War II, and, they were such victims that they needed to be given a homeland all their own. Wah, wah. It's downstairs. So we're still not done yet either, right? Just think about this. I've already blown you away by who the fuck this guy is. But we're not even close. Drebel's most famous written work was Equate, Tracken, blah, 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 a short treatise of the nature of elements. Yeah. Just laying out the elements and all that shit for us too. Harlem in 1621. So this is a year after he's imprisoned in early 2020, got out, built the submarine, of which we haven't talked about yet. And then a year later, he's writing out the treatise for the elements. And if you saw this treatise of the short treatise of the elements, whatever, you would see one of those just insane books where you just wonder how the fuck they would have ever even printed this. Because in each one of the margins, there are beautiful pictures, and it's on a different fucking level of book than we make today. Back in the 1600s. Because even then, what the fuck were printing presses like? What was the mass, how could they mass produce books? What was the distribution network like back then? These are just, to me, like I always say, like, there are so many spectacular things for you to focus on. Things that you look at and you go, wow, there's just no way we could have built that. The Palace of Versailles, La Familia, whatever it's called, that big fucking church. Just about any, just about any building that still exists from pre-1940, right? All that shit is just beyond reasoning or understanding. And especially explanation, because you never really get any. But like, when you start looking at shit like gaslighting is one of my favorite things. Not gaslighting, but the lighting systems that used to run throughout cities, and there would be a street light out in front of a house or whatever, and it would be fed by a gas line. Just think about that. Who's running gas lines underneath the streets in 1800s? The truth is, according to the narrative, the Chinese had been using natural gas, to light and heat homes as early as 500 BC. And they would run it through bamboo piping, apparently. But it wasn't until the 1850s or so, after the 1850s, that Europeans finally caught up. And some guy sort of invented this technique, sort of blah, blah, blah. It's really vague. But then a Jewish guy comes in, and because the Jewish guy comes in, then it becomes the standard. And like almost overnight, not only are there gas lighting systems everywhere, but there's the gas production. Where do they produce the gas to then be pumped through the system? How do they house it? How do they maintain it? How do they store it? They used to call it bladders. Why? Because they would use actual bladders of animals to store gases in somehow. And as crazy as shit like Palace of Versailles or just any of it, as crazy as that shit is, the mundane shit like dry ice is just as fucking crazy. Something as mundane as dry ice, on the surface, you don't even think about it. Morning. But dry ice was first observed in 1830 when a guy opened up a canister of liquid CO2, and because CO2 can't maintain or CO2 sublimes from solid to gas at our environmental pressure and temperature. To get liquid CO2, it has to be like minus 70 something Celsius and under a tremendous amount of pressure before you can get liquid CO2. So that leads me to ask, in the 1830s, what process did they have to create liquid CO2? You have to have first you have to have your carbon dioxide, but then you have to lower its temperature well below anywhere, like outside of like the North Pole and shit, but super, super low temperature and pressure. What process did they have back then to facilitate that? And then, and this guy opens up his canister. Well, how did his canister get to his house? Was there a liquid CO2 supply company back then? What did they store their liquid CO2 in to keep it at a fucking below fucking freezing temperature and such a heavy pressure? Again, we're talking about things that require regulators and all that kind of thing that weren't even invented yet. So how could he have observed dry ice in its first, the first person to observe dry ice by opening up a liquid CO2 canister in 1830? There's so much more to the narrative than most people realize. It's like when you try to prove yourself wrong, you just end up with more questions. The more you look into shit, the dumber everything looks. Look up the bricks. Look up the brick production. How do you get all the bricks to make all the buildings back in the day? Where do these kilns? Bricks require so much raw material. The earth itself, the mix-ins to get your brick consistency, the chemicals or the different ingredients that you mix in. But more importantly, you have to let the bricks dry, but then you have to fire the bricks. And firing the bricks requires a high, constant temperature in a very enclosed environment. If you look at what old kilns used to look like, it's like, so then they were doing this and making bricks by the millions. Where? How? What technology was it? Would have been cleaned in every forest possible. Needed to fire all of those bricks. And the oldest structures, brick structures, are thousands of years old. Blah blah. It's all bullshit. The more you look into it, All right. He was also involved in the invention of mercury fulminate. He also discovered that mixtures of spiritus vini with mercury and silver in aqua fortis could explode. Drebel invented a chicken incubator and a mercury thermostat, which automatically kept it stable at a constant temperature. One of the first recorded feedback-controlled devices. He also developed and demonstrated a working air conditioning system. The invention of a working thermometer is also credited to Drebel. This guy is fucking insane. Like, this shit is insane. When is he doing all of this? Scarlet dye. The story goes that, that's a good way to start your scientific history, and discovered stannous chloride made the color of carmine and more durable. Although Cornelius did not make much money from his work, his daughters, Anna and Katrina, and his sons, Abraham, we got to have our Abraham in there, don't we? And Johannes Maccabeus? Gotta love all those Abrahams in our history. Set up very successful dye works. One was set up in 1643 in Bow, London, and the resulting color was called Bow dye. The recipe for color Kufrianus was kept a family secret, and the new bright red color was very popular in Europe. New colors. In optics, Drebel is credited with developing an automatic precision lens grinding machine, improved telescopes, and the first compound microscope, the camera obscura, the lantern magica, and Dutch or Bavarian tears. He invented all of these things. Remember when I told you I couldn't oversell him? One of the optical devices some historians believe Drebel invented when he was working for the Duke of Buckingham, when was that? Was the compound microscope. The device appeared in Europe around 1620. Wait, 1620? He was captured in Prague in the early part of 1620. With the earliest account being Dutch ambassador Willem Borel's 1619 visit to London, where he saw a compound microscope in Drebel's possession and wrote it down. And then we have it here in 2026. Described as an instrument about 18 inches long, 2 inches in diameter, and supported on 3 brass dolphins. In 1621, Drebel had a compound microscope with 2 convex lenses. Several of his contemporaries, including Constantin Huygens, credit the invention of the compound microscope to Drebel. The invention has many counterclaims, including Dutch spectacle maker Johannes Zachariassen's claim that Drebel stole the idea from him and his father, Zacharias Jensen, and claims that Galileo Galilei used his telescope after 1610 as a type of compound microscope. In 1624, Galileo saw Drebel's design for a microscope in Rome and created an improved version of it to send to Federico Sisi, founder of the Accademia di Lindsay, who used it to illustrate Aprium, his book about bees. Why do we know this? Like, seriously, this is what I'm saying. When they're talking about around here, and we're not sure about that, but we know these kinds of connections, don't we? So here we go. Here's the good part. So this is a picture of the first submarine. And again, look at the background. Who built that fucking church, man? How did they build all that shit in the back? Look at the skyscrapers in the background, but then look at how gigantic that church was. Oh, here's a replica of it. So just look at that, all right? So how do they know where they're going in this thing? It's 1600s. How are they able to see inside of it? It's not like you could light a flame. You'd burn up all your oxygen. You'd probably explode if it's pressurized. It'd have to be pressurized to keep the water out. So what was creating the oxygen for them to breathe? What was cleaning the air? What were they seeing with? Let's see. He also built the first navigable submarine in 1620 while working for the English Royal Navy. Just think about everything you've heard about this man from 1620. Are we to believe that the submarine took him a couple of weeks at the most to build? Look, anybody who's not like, wow, this shit is kind of weird, and all they're doing is talking shit, they just show you that they're dumb, inbred fryer Israelis, right? Because again, it wouldn't matter how much you hate me. This doesn't make any sense. And if you were any bit of a decent, real person, you would acknowledge that. But, you know, they have a job to do. Act.il's got to act.il. Joe is a pedo. All Joe is concerned about is how he can get more children. He's a piece of shit. He manufactured a steerable submarine with a leather-covered wooden frame. How long do you think it would take just to build the leather covering for this thing? It's not like there were leather coverings that were around and he just was like, oh, let me go grab one of these. This shit would have to be like millimeter perfect. You couldn't have little pockets or anything like that. This would have to be perfect. Between 1620 and 1624, Drebel successfully built and tested 2 more submarines. Gee, that's weird. I didn't think he was still in Europe at the time. I thought he was moving around, being imprisoned and shit. Each one bigger than the last. The final, third model, had 6 oars and could carry 16 passengers. Think about how big that would have to. And again, how could they see inside of said submarine? How would they be able to navigate? It's a steerable sub. How do you know where you're going? You can't see out of the water. You're about to see here in a second. This model was demonstrated to King James I in person and several thousand Londoners. The submarine stayed submerged for 3 hours. Where were they getting their air from? And could travel from Westminster to Greenwich and back, cruising at a depth between 12 and 15 feet below the surface. Drebel even took King James in this submarine on a test drive beneath the Thames. The River Thames, they used to dump all their shit into it. The River Thames was one of the most polluted rivers in history for a very long time. So much so that when they built the first tunnel underneath it in 1840, they had an incident that, they kept having people get sick from all of the sewage leaking through and the toxic sewage flames that were coming because the Thames was just so nasty. So as he's navigating through the Thames with the fucking King of England at the time inside his submarine, how is he able to see where he's going? Don't you think that'd be kind of dangerous? Maybe. Making King James I the first monarch to travel underwater. This submarine was tested many times in the Thames. This is the best part. but it failed to attract enough enthusiasm from the Admiralty and was never used in combat. So you want me to believe that Europe, which was one of the greatest militaries of the region of the time, if not the greatest, Rome had already fallen and shit, that they saw this man demonstrate a working vessel to travel underwater undetected for up to 3 hours, 12 to 14 feet deep, and you would imagine if the military got involved, they would improve on it. And yet the military didn't see any value in that. Like, I'm not a military guy, but even I can see that being the first people to have a working underwater vessel would probably be to your advantage. Especially when a lot of war and shit was held at sea back then. The great fucking battles and the big battleships and shit like that. And that's that. That's fucking that. I mean, there's cultural references. This shit doesn't matter. Namesake. A small lunar crater has been named after him. That's it. Several Dutch towns have a street named after him. Cornelius Drebbelweg is in Delft is one of them. No notes. References, blah, blah, blah. There's all sorts of references. Sources, more sources, and external links. That's it. That's it. That's the most incredible man in history. And that's it. That's all you get. And so the same system that never told you a thing about Cornelius Drebbel, never really told you shit, also tells you that Israel is the good guy. And the friars are the chosen people. And like, doesn't it start to make sense to you that it's all just lies and lies stacked on more and more lies? And it's the same people doing it, desperately trying to maintain their control. They're not trying to take control. They're trying to maintain their control. And they're terrified. They're terrified. They managed to make it a little over, 150 years, almost 200 years or so, maybe. They fucked up, gave us the internet, and we reached out to each other. And we were like, hey, you guys, did you see this? Hey, did you know about this? Hey, and we're like, nah, that's weird. Hey, did they treat you guys like this too? Yeah, it's fucked up. Like, we should do something about it. So you want to keep going? Do you want to learn more? Let's just go straight to submarine. A submarine is a watercraft capable of independent operation underwater. It differs from a submersible, which has more limited underwater capability. The term submarine is also sometimes used historically or informally to refer to remotely operated vehicles and robots, or to medium-sized or smaller vessels such as midget submarine and wet sub. Submarines are referred to as boats rather than ships, regardless of their size. Boats, huh? That's weird. Boats float. Let's see. Let's see here. World War II fleet submarine, commissioned 41 to 45. 41 to 45, those are pretty significant years. a lot of shit happened between 41 and 45. They say that 6 million friars were eliminated between 41 and 45. 4 years. That's basically 3 friars every fucking minute for 4 years straight. Who thinks that's possible? But here, this is supposedly what the submarines look like. This is in the 40s. Now remember what we were capable of in the 40s. Remember what cars look like, and airplanes look like, and yet we're building these magic tubes that can withstand pressures, beyond you can't even imagine. Like, if you've ever swam in a pool, like the 12-foot deep section, if you swim down to the bottom of it, is so much worse than 10-foot deep. You ever notice that? Just that 2 feet, it's like there's a shit ton more pressure on your head than if you're in just a 10-foot deep pool. And if you happen to go to one of those big ass pools that gets like 20 feet down and shit, 30 feet, that is excruciating. It is the amount of pressure that is just, 30 feet down or 20 feet. I've never gone 30 feet down, but like close to 20 feet down is so much that normally you just try to swim back up. You can't take it. And of course, that small little pocket of air you have in your chest is doing everything it can to bring you to the surface. Right? But just think about what they're telling you existed and how it existed. But let's find out, shall we? Let's see what they have to say. Although experimental submarines had been built earlier, submarine design took off during the 19th century, and submarines were adopted by several navies. They were first used widely during World War I. From 1914 to 1918. 1620 is when he first invented that shit. It took 300 years before people were like, hey, we've long had this technology that allows us to go underwater undetected. Why don't we start using that shit? Imagine if they would have been developing that technology over the last 300 years, huh? And are now used in more navies, large and small. Their military uses include attacking enemy surface ships. Blah, blah. Who gives a fuck? I don't care about this shit. Submarines can be modified for specialized functions such as search and rescue, missions, or undersea cable repair. Yeah, you want to check out a fun story is look at the transatlantic cable. I mean, just talk about an unbelievable bunch of dumb shit. That they laid the transatlantic cable in the 1800s is just fucking silly. Knock it off, Tula. Oh, yeah? Most large submarines consist of a cylindrical body with hemispherical or conical ends and a vertical structure usually located amidships, which houses communications and sensing devices as well as periscopes. Think about that for a second. They love to show you that fake footage where the submarine comes busting through the ice. Ice is what took down the Titanic. Ice is jagged as fuck. The claim that they can bust through 5-6 feet of ice. Like there's a video online. I love this video. This was the video that actually pushed my wife over the edge. Right? Because she definitely was not on board with the submarine argument. But there's a video of, because there's plenty of video from inside super duper top secret submarines where you see these people walking around the submarine, drawing on shit, you know, living everyday life, standing in the periscope, making phone calls, shit like that. It's like, have you guys ever been in an airplane? Even when the airplane is flying steadily, walking on it feels really weird. And any slight little bump, you feel, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's not in water. So water oscillating and jostling all over the place, right? Currents and drafts and you know, all this other shit, riptides. And the people in the submarine are never affected by the outside of it. You literally never seen it. But the video that really sent things over the edge was supposedly in the conning tower, which again, that's where all your sensitive equipment is and all this other shit. And you use that to bust through the ice? Seems pretty dangerous. Seems like all it would take is one little jagged, sharp edge to catch and just rip a hole right through it like the Titanic, right? You'd think that's what would happen. But the video shows like 8 guys in the conning tower. 2 are driving, 6 are just sort of standing there, arms crossed, whatever. And then at the bottom of the screen, there's like an Atari animated depiction of what's happening. And you can see that the submarine is 100 meters below the surface. Their plan is to rise 10 meters per second, which shouldn't that cause the bends? But never mind. 10 meters per second, and then they'll bust through the ice. And they count it down, 10, 9, 8. And they get to 3, 2, 1. Boom, bust through the ice. Not one fucking person even does like this. They just busted through ice and came to a stop because they hit the air and then they sort of boing. Like, whenever you see submarines in videos, surface, it either takes like a half hour because they're spitting out water and a whole bunch of, hey, I'm right here, spray goes up and all this other shit. But usually you just see them like if you let go of a pop can of a 2 liter below the surface, they pop up. Pop up and they do like that. And again, just thinking about the people on the inside of that, if that thing is zooming up and then it hits that stop point, the people on the inside, you ever been driving down just the road and you go over a hill that you don't necessarily see and it makes your stomach rise and fall real quick? It would be like 1,000 times that. You would get thrown up and then back down, and it would cause irrevocable damage to the fucking your spine and your neck and all this. These guys bust through 4 feet of ice, traveling at 10 feet per second, and then and it's like nothing. They also show you what it looks like from the outside, from the surface, right? From somebody on the surface. Well, let me ask you, how did that cameraman get there? If they hadn't busted through the ice yet, how did the cameraman get there? And of course, the cameraman is far enough back that you can't actually see if the thing is coming up through ice or if it's already busted or whatever it is. The other thing you see from the video is it starts with the conning tower already through the ice. You don't ever see a video of a flat surface of ice and then suddenly a submarine comes busting through it. You know, all this evidence should be everywhere. I shouldn't be able to make arguments. Right? Nothing I'm saying should make sense, nor, and it all should be very easily, you go, oh, bullshit, dude, here's a video, go look this. You're not going to find it. You won't find convincing videos of submarines. The one video of a submarine surfacing shows just that. It's a flat surface, and then suddenly the submarine just pops up, boom, like it suddenly became buoyant. Like somebody let it go from underneath. And you don't see the people come out of it or anything. It's just a quick little 2-minute clip. You would think there would be way more videos of submarines, convincing videos, than there actually are, but there just aren't. Let's see. In modern submarines, this structure is called the sail in American usage and fin in European usage. A feature of earlier designs was the conning tower, a separate pressure hull above the main body of the boat that enabled the use of shorter periscopes, because that's where they were. Just think about this. How the fuck do submarines communicate? Think about that. Wouldn't all submarine communications, if they're getting transferred through the water, wouldn't they be able to be picked up by anybody else that's in the water too? How do you transmit signals from the land into the deep ocean far away? Oh, that's where the satellites come in. Oh, really? They didn't have satellites back then. Like, there's just so much of this that none of you are prepared to fucking answer. You go back and you look at all the comments. None of them make any sense. It's all just a bunch of crybaby. And if somebody does say something early on, I end up answering it later on. But literally, all you have to do is take your own fucking body to the beach. Bring yourself a 2-liter so you can conduct even more experiments. But there is a propeller at the rear and various hydrodynamic control fins. Smaller, deep diving and specialty submarines may deviate significantly from this traditional design. Right. Anytime you see like one of those rich guy subs, the James Cameron type subs, they look nothing like the submarine, the tubes. Nothing. They'll be like a ball with some weird shapes on it or whatever. They look more like a lunar lander than anything else. Submarines encompass a wide range of types and capabilities, blah, 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 blah. All right. History. The word submarine means underwater or undersea, as a submarine canyon, submarine pipeline. Though, as a noun, it generally refers to a vessel that can travel underwater. I don't care about etymology. Early human-powered submersibles. According to a report in Opusculum Tasniri, published in 1562. Well, wait a minute. What happened to 1620? Now we're in 1562, and it's the Greeks. 2 Greeks submerged and surfaced in the river Tagus near the city of Toledo several times in the presence of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, without getting wet and with the flame they carried in their hands still alight. Well, how would they have done that? I mean, seriously. You can't just cry about what I'm saying because you're like, oh, that's anti-Semitism. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm proud of it. No, you can't do that. We're talking about the historical account here. This has nothing to do with me. Right? So, if you're going to cry, cry accurately. Right? Fucking pedophiles. In 1578, the English mathematician William Bourne recorded in his book, Inventions or Devices, one of the first plans for an underwater navigational vehicle. Oh, yeah? A few years later, the Scottish mathematician and theologian John Napier, or Napier, wrote in his Secret Inventions 1596 that these inventions, besides devices of sailing, S-A-Y-L-I-N-G, of sailing underwater with divers and other devices and stratagems stratagems for harming of the enemies. It's weird how they wrote Enemyes of the enemies by the grace of God, and a work, W-O-R-K-E, of expert craftsmen I hope to perform. It is unclear whether he carried out his idea. Geronimo de Anza y Beaumont, 1553 to 1613, created detailed designs for two types of air-renovated submersible vehicles. They were equipped with oars, autonomous floating snorkels worked by inner pumps. Portholes and gloves were used for the crew to manipulate underwater objects. Ayanez planned to use them for warfare, using them to approach enemy ships undetected, set up timed gunpowder charges on their hulls. You know, those wacky 1500s. The first submersible of whose construction there exists reliable information was designed and built in 1620 by Cornelius Drebbel, a Dutchman in the service of James I of England. It was propelled by means of oars. So who was rowing the oars? Are you telling me that the 16 people inside also had to row the oars? Now, you would imagine that the rowing of oars would, in unison would take practice. You couldn't just be like, hey, any random person, get in there and start a rowing. They'd have to know the exact timing, the exact pressure. And even then, you ever tried to move an oar back and forth underwater? Like, the reason why it works is because as you're pulling on it, you lift it out of the water to put it back, and then you pull on it to propel yourself forward, because it's like you're pulling against something. So how would the oars go back and forth if they're underwater? Seems kind of weird. In the 18th century, this is a cutaway replica of Bushnell's turtle at the Submarine Force Library and Museum in Groton, Connecticut. Oh, where Brian Fahey's from. Rotten Corrupticut. There's a song coming out about him. This is after 1620, right? We wanted to get up to the what was this? This was 1775, so a good 150 years later, this is what he came up with. And this shit is goofy as fuck. So basically, one arm is turning the propeller. The other arm is operating all of the other, devices and little fidgets that need to be messed with in order to make this thing work. Oh my goodness. He loves his kisses. He loves his kisses. You got one arm working the crank, one arm working other elements of it, all the other things. The feet are operating the ballast tanks, and there's a device that seems to be in his butt crack that he uses to steer. It's fucking ridiculous, man. And again, so he's supposed to see the top, the little circles at the top. That's supposed to be what he sees out of. But how would he possibly see out of it? He's a good foot short. And that whole top of that thing sticks out of the water. It doesn't go underwater. The whole top part sticks out of the water. And there are these snorkels that stick out. So any real waves are going to fuck it up. And the thing is, it fails. It fails. By the mid-18th century, over a dozen patents for submarines and submersible boats had been granted in England. In 1747, Nathaniel Simons patented and built the first known working example of the use of a ballast tank for submersion. Something that still doesn't make much sense. Like, ballast tanks are stupid. Especially when you're talking about a submarine where, like, you know, maybe 5 to 10% of the entire volume is filled or emptied with the ballast tanks. You're still talking about this large area of compressed air. Large, you know, with a bunch of people with air in them. And it's all just so goofy. But you're supposed to believe that if you take, you know, this vessel that's full of pressurized air and you introduce 10% water into the volume of the cavity, that's somehow going to lower the submarine. And then you have to think, like, as the submarine goes up and down, those ballast tanks would have to be filled and emptied in unison and like in real time, along with the air pressure in the submarine constantly having to be adjusted, because again, the deeper you go, the pressure magnifies 10, 15, 20, 100-fold. So too much pressure on the inside means it's going to explode. Too much pressure from the outside means it's going to implode. So that constantly has to be adjusted in order to maintain swimming up and down and all around. Now, nowadays you could say, well, that's all done by computers and mathematics and calculations done by the microsecond, blah, blah, blah. Sure. What were they doing back then? You know, the first airplane basically completely controlled outside of landing and takeoff by computers is the Concorde. You know, the most amazing fucking plane ever made. And that you know, was the corner of the market, had their own monopoly when it came to rich people traveling. Could cut the journey across the ocean in half. It was a supersonic jet capable of flying at 55,000 feet. Imagine if this jet was flying at 55,000 feet today and you still couldn't see the curvature. And the horizon still rose to your eye level. Wouldn't that be weird? But because of one mishap, a bird hit it and fucked something up. There was one accident. They shut the entire program down. They could literally be making a killing in the monopoly of rich people traveling across the oceans, and they don't do it. We do not have the same flight capabilities that we supposedly had in 1969 when the Concorde was introduced. Now, again, the first plane completely controlled by computers. Think about what you think computers look like in the 60s, in the 70s, even into the 80s. 60s and 70s computers were huge. Flashing lights all over them, reel-to-reels on them. Just look at what NASA was working with in 69. Look at the giant room full of goofy fake computers. You're telling me all of those computers fit inside the plane along with the people and, of course, the magical jet fuel that somehow exists somewhere in the plane. You know, the largest planes today are said to hold 68,000 gallons of fuel in the wings. In the wings? Do you know how much 68,000 gallons weighs? Simple math. A gallon is 6 pounds. You're talking about upwards of like 1.2 million pounds of fuel just sitting in the wings, apparently. Even though there's clearly a whole bunch of control systems and landing gears and flappy control, hydraulics and all that, you can actually see what the inside of the wings looks like. And it doesn't hold much gasoline. Do yourself a favor, look up a 68,000 gallon water tank. See what that looks like. And you tell me how that fits in an airplane's wings. 1969, we had the epitome of travel technology when it came to flight. And in 2026, we have nothing even close to it. You look like the way things work is you get like something groundbreaking, something that changes the world and makes things one way or another. And some place like 69, you would think some 57 years later, we would be much further ahead. Not behind. Why would we be behind? But this is what you see a lot. I firmly believe we are not evolving. We are devolving. Let's see. In 1747, Nathaniel Simons demonstrated or patented and built the first known working example of the use of a ballast tank for submersion. His designs used leather bags that could fill with water to submerge the craft. Do you know how stupid that is? You're talking about in a giant craft like that Bell, a garbage bag's worth of water is going to sink the entire craft? And again, do it in a way that allows for control. It's not that you're just trying to sink it and then that's it. It has to be floating and moving. And again, this is in 1747, apparently. A mechanism, we're not going to say what it was, but a mechanism was used to twist the water out of the bags and cause the boat to resurface. That is so fucking dumb. In 1749, the Gentleman's Magazine reported that a similar design had initially been proposed by Giovanni Borelli in 1680. Further design improvement stagnated for over a century until application of new technologies for propulsion and stability. What? Emerged? It just ends there. Further improvement stagnated for over a century until application of new technologies for propulsion and stability. What? That's just how that ends, huh? The first military submersible was Turtle in 1775, a hand-powered acorn-shaped device designed by the American David Bushnell to accommodate a single person. It was the first verified submarine capable of independent underwater operation and movement, and the first to use screws for propulsion. But it failed, so I don't really understand. It wasn't like the first successful one. 1806 illustration by Robert Fulton showing a plunging boat. This doesn't show anything. The fuck am I looking at? That shit doesn't show you anything. It's just some weird ass fucking shit. What's up, Caron? In 1800, France built Nautilus, a human-powered submarine designed by American Robert Fulton. They gave up on the experiment in 1804, as did the British, when they reconsidered Fulton's submarine design, because it didn't work. You understand? That's a good boy. That's a good boy. Let me see. Ready? Ready? Go get it. Bring it back. Bring it back. Get it. Bring it back. This guy is crazy. He's reading stuff. Why is he reading and not just letting some dumb friar tell him what to think? And really, I am still, this is all just put together by dumb friars, but it sure is interesting to read what they want us to know, isn't it? Good boy, good boy, good boy, good boy. Ready? Go get it. Good boy. Good boy. Bring it back. Come on. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Go get it. Oh, I'm teaching my kid how to play fetch. That's a good boy. Good boy. That's a good boy. Go get it. That's so funny. He just figured this out. This cat's smart. All right. Let's see. Good boy. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. That's my good boy. Ready? Go get it. It's funny that they're not saying directly that they're failing. It's just saying, well, when they reconsidered Fulton's design, that's a good boy. In 1850, Willem Bauer's Brauntacher was built in Germany. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. Ready? Go get it. Brauntacher was built in Germany. It remains the oldest known surviving submarine in the world. Oh, this is the surviving version? That's a good boy. That's a good boy. Go get... Oh, that was a bad throw. My bad. Yep, it's medication time. I need to take my meds because I'm asking too many questions. Guy Williams, you don't understand volume and mass. Yep, that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. In 1864, late in the American Civil War, good boy, look at you, good boy. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. Go get it. The Confederate Navy's H.L. Hunley, good boy, became the first military submarine to sink an enemy vessel. The Union sloop of war USS Houstonic. Oh, that's a good boy. That's a good boy. Go get it. Put it in front of me like you're going to throw it. Using a gunpowder-filled keg on a spar on a spar as a torpedo charge. Good boy. That's my good boy. Oh, shit. Sorry. Wait, let me do it. There you go. Go get it. Good boy. The Hunley also sank. The explosion shock waves may have killed its crew instantly, preventing them from pumping the bilge or propelling the submarine. In 1866, Submarine Explorer was the first submarine to successfully dive, cruise underwater, and resurface under the crew's control. So, if they're saying in 1866 this was the first one to successfully do it, that means all the other ones had failed. Do you need to go potty, little boy? Let's go potty. Stop. 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 Can you get the door for me?
I hear party.
It's time to P-A-R-T. Why? Because I've gotta. He pooped. How come nobody cleaned it up?
Huh?
He pooped. How come nobody cleaned it up? You don't have to go? Yucky. Leave it. Leave it. He's trying to bury it. That's so funny. I got it. I'll get it out of there. Don't worry. Wow, this cat pees so much. It's crazy. The volume. Even though I don't understand volume, the volume in which this little bitty body can hold insane amounts of pee is pretty crazy to me. Ooh. Stop, weirdo. Everything's an excuse to play. You're making swishy noises. All right, dude. We got it all. Come on, little guy. Here you go.
I don't want him.
Too bad.
He's ugly.
All right. All right. The design by German-American Julius H. Kroll incorporated elements that are still used in modern submarines. Skip over the rest. In 1866 as well, Flatch was built at the Chilean government's request by Karl Flatch, a German engineer and immigrant. Man, these Germans, they seem to be the only ones capable, huh? Weird. Almost like the idea that Germany was something special. And then, along with the second submarine, was intended to defend the port of Valparaiso against attack by the Spanish Navy during the Chincha Islands War. Man, you've heard about all those, haven't you? Chincha Islands Wars? Well, yeah, those are bad. Mechanically powered submarines. Submarines could not be put into widespread or routine service use by navies until suitable engines were developed. The era from 1863 to 1904 marked a pivotal time in submarine development, and several important technologies appeared. A number of nations built and used submarines. Diesel-electric propulsion became the prominent power system, and equipment such as the periscope became standardized. Countries conducted many experiments on the effective tactics and weapons for submarines, which led to their large impact in World War I. Huh. Kick his ass, Randy. That's Randy Coach Hurry. He's gonna kick your ass for sure. This show's so stupid. Show's so stupid. The French submarine prolongé. Yeah, that looks like a real thing, doesn't it? That's real. The first submarine not relying on human power for propulsion was the French Palongre, the diver, launched in 1863. Again, the diesel fumes and shit, they just what? They just ran on diesel somehow in this incredibly small area. This is just the regular submarine parts. If you're watching, like, share, and sub. Don't forget to help out, man. I'm educating motherfuckers. Which used compressed air at 1200 kPa or 180 psi. In 1863, what did they have that was capable of air compression? What regulator systems did they have in place? Remember, dry ice is 30 years before this, at least. Narcisse Montreal designed the first air-independent and combustion-powered submarine in Ictino II, which was launched in Barcelona, Spain in 1864. The submarine became feasible as potential weapon, not as a potential weapon, but as potential weapon with the development of the Whitehead torpedo, designed in 1866 by British engineer Robert Whitehead. The first practical self-propelled torpedo. The spar torpedo that had been developed earlier by the Confederate States Navy was considered to be impractical, as it was believed to have sunk both its intended target and the H.L. Hunley, the submarine that deployed it. But we don't know. The Irish inventor John Philip Holland built a model submarine. Oh, shit. Oh, God damn it. Built a model submarine in 1876, and in 1878 demonstrated the Holland 1 prototype. A model submarine? What's that going to do? This was followed by a number of unsuccessful designs. In 1896, he designed the Holland Type 6 submarine, which used internal combustion engine power on the surface and electric battery power underwater. You know, those 1878 batteries were something special. Launched on May 17th, 1897 at Navy Lieutenant Lewis Nixon Crescent Shipyard in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Stop. Holland Type 6 submarine. Oh, wait. No. Holland 6 was purchased by the United States Navy on April 11th, 1900, becoming the Navy's first commissioned submarine, christened the USS Holland. Discussions between the English clergyman and inventor George Garrett and the Swedish industrialist Thorsten Northfjord led to the first practical steam-powered submarines, armed with torpedoes and ready for military use. It's amazing how all of these countries had, they were able to develop this shit all at the same time in different places. Different people, all that shit. Joe's a pedophile. Don't forget that. Joe is fucking. Just keep that in mind with everything he says. You're talking about an absolute disgusting monster. And at the same time, he's a pretty typical Israeli. Pretty typical friar. It's weird. All right, hang on a second. I just need to prep myself a little. So you guys are getting your submarine episode. It's been a long time, but nothing much has changed. We haven't even begun to discuss Chaim Rickover yet. What? This is what you wanted. Won't be doing it again for a while. This will be something that you can refer to anytime you need to from now on. We can just say, hey, you want to make the dumb submarine argument again? Go watch the video that I'm making right now and debunk it. Debunk anything. There sure is a lot of shit talk in here, but nobody debunking anything, just like with everything else I do. I don't sit here and present shit knowing it's going to be fucking wrecked and I'm going to look like some sort of dumbass. Damn near everything we talk about, we've talked about it before. But there is always that chance, When you're researching things like this, you don't know what you're going to come across. You could click on it. You do it blindly, so you could click on it, and it could explain everything. And you could be like, oh, I guess I was wrong. No conspiracy theory here. Thing is, after you've done this enough times, you come at it with confidence, knowing that's not going to happen. I know flat out, I can call these friars every pedo up and down, and they're going to, they'll cry about it, but they can't actually deny it. And what they say is, you shouldn't say those things. You're not allowed to talk about those things. They never say, wow, that's fucked up. How do we fix it? Never, not once. Discussions between English clergymen and blah, blah, blah. The first was Nordenfelt, a 56-ton, or tone, which is a little bit heavier than tons, I believe. Stop it. 19.5 meters, 64 foot long, I guess. Vessel, similar to Garrett's ill-fated Resurgam 1879, with a range of 240 kilometers or 130 nautical miles to 150 miles, armed with a single torpedo in 1885. This is Peril at Cartagena in 1888. This is apparently a submarine in 1888. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Stop. 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 You cannot chew on cords, dumb cat. Dummkopf. No. You have an entire bed full of toys here, dude. Play with the toys. A reliable means of propulsion for the submerged vessel was only made possible in the 1880s with the advent of the necessary electrical battery technology. Oh, you got it. The first electrically powered boats were built by Isaac Pearl, that was the one we just saw, in Spain, who built Perel Dupuy de Lome, who built Gymnote, and Gustave Zidi, who built Serene in France. Wow. They all just happen to build these independently? That's interesting. And James Franklin Waddington, who built Porpoise in England. Perel's design featured torpedoes and other systems that later became standard in submarines. USS Plunger, launched in 1902. I mean, what is there to question about this photograph? Totally legitimate, totally looks real. Why is the wheel... What is that wheel doing just right there on the middle of whatever? What the fuck is that wheel doing? Shouldn't that be on the top of the hatch? Did AI fuck up there? I mean, obviously this person is photoshopped in. Look at that. Look how goofy that shit looks. Look at his fingers. Let me guess, he lost that finger. That's why it looks like that. Clearly photoshopped. And what is this? What is this pipe sticking out the top? What the fuck is that? And so, oh, this wheel is just a wheel that goes down into the... What the fuck would that be for? Right? Isn't that weird? The Akula, launched in 1907, was the first Russian submarine able to cruise long distances. I mean, clearly a completely fake image. As always, nothing but black. Oh, let's go for a walk. And you can see all the waves, right? Waves destroy the idea of exposure times. People say back then they had those long ass exposure times. Well, then you wouldn't have pictures of waves this crisp, now would you? The waves are all crisp, but the faces are completely blacked out. This thing sure is skinny. Oh shit. It's hard to do this. Look how skinny this thing is. Sure looks like a boat to me. Some holes down there, I guess, for the ballast tanks. And everybody just hanging out. Just hanging out. Look, what flag is that? What flag are they flying right there? And of course, don't bother to look at the giant fucking, concrete and metal vessel behind them? What the fuck is that thing? Like, when you think about what cars look like in 1907, you're telling me the best we could do was the Model T, the Model A, whatever it was? And that's what we were capable of building on the sea? Really? We were pretty fucking way ahead of our time when it came to being on the sea. Isn't that strange? Commissioned in June of 1900, the French steam and electrical naval Narvel employed a new topical double hull design with a pressure hull inside the outer shell. These 200-ton ships. 200-ton, 400,000-pound ships. How did they build these and then transport them and all that shit? If you're not a flat earther, then submarines make no sense whatsoever. Because again, how would they communicate around a ball underwater? It's one thing to say that the waves will ride the surface, but then to say they're not only going around the curvature, they're doing it underwater as well? That's pretty impressive. The French submarine, equate, in 1904, further improved on the concept by using, by using a diesel rather than gasoline engine for surface power. Again, where would they have stored all this diesel and all this gasoline and bullshit? Large numbers of these submarines were built, with 76 completed before 1914. 200-ton ships. 76 of them were built before 1914. The Royal Navy Commission. Oh my God, he's still going about submarines. Wait, weren't you the ones crying about me not talking about it? And then, what, did you think it was going to be just a quick thing? Sorry, I have lots of evidence against what you believe, but that's usually how this works. And you usually cry about it. I love how predictable you are. The Royal Navy commissioned 5 Holland-class submarines from Vickers, Barrow and Furness under license from the Holland Torpedo Boat Company from 1901 to 1903. Construction of the boats took longer than anticipated, with the first only ready for diving, a diving trial at sea, on April 6, 1902. Although the design had been purchased entirely from the U.S. company, the actual design used was an untested improvement to the original Holland design, using a new 180 horsepower petrol engine. I'm to believe that these 200-ton ships are being moved around by 180 horsepower? Doesn't that seem, I don't know, not very believable? These types of submarines were first used during the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. Due to the blockade at Port Arthur, the Russians sent their submarines to Vladivostok, where by January 1st, 1905, there were 7 boats, enough to create the world's first operational submarine fleet. Thought they had 76. The new submarine fleet began patrols on February 14th, Valentine's Day, usually lasting for about 24 hours each. They're not going to even begin to tell you how they create air. They say that they can create, air is one of those things, Cat Williams said it, air is one of those things that we have the recipe for, but we can't build it. Like, technically, shouldn't we be able to, create a vacuum, then pump it with 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, and it'll make water? Shouldn't that happen? Isn't that how that works? H2O, right? And because of that, they say, when they have desalinated water, again, another use for the desalinated water, they run an electrical charge through the water, which separates the oxygen molecules from the hydrogen molecules. And then they have an oxygen molecule collector, while they're left with a bunch of liquid hydrogen that I guess they just, pump back into the fucking water. Like, liquid hydrogen's not supposed to be the best thing, right? And yet, again, who invented the oxygen molecule collector? And show me that shit in use. I'd love to see that shit in use. You won't. The first confrontation with Japanese warships occurred on April 29th, 1905, when the Russian submarine Sam was fired upon by Japanese torpedo boats, but then withdrew. Yeah, doesn't sound very successful to me. Now we're just going to jump to World War I. The German submarine SMU-9, which sank 3 British cruisers in less than an hour in September 1914. This is a fucking drawing. Like, this is a drawing. Again, does that look practical at all? What the fuck are these big tubes that stick up? And everybody's just out hanging out on the fucking submarine, just blah, blah, blah. Just. Well, you know it's real because, look, the reflection in the water. This is a goddamn drawing. This is a fucking drawing. And again, it sure looks like there's a bunch of cities and shit in the background. Whatever. Military submarines first made a significant impact in World War I. Forces such as the U-boats of Germany saw action in the First Battle of the Atlantic and were responsible for sinking RMS Lusitania, which was sunk as a result of unrestricted submarine warfare and is often credited or cited among the reasons for the entry of the United States into the war. Yup. Makes sense to me. How about you? You know, like, it seemed like they were floundering along with this submarine shit. But then by 1914, the Germans figured this shit out, and they were just the terror on the high seas out there just wrecking everyone. Weird, huh? They just fucking figured it out. If you look at the boats, the German U-boats aren't said to be submarines, right? They are submersibles. That's why they call them U-boats, underwater boats, because they didn't go very deep. That thing, that tower sticking out, that stuck out of the top of the water. That's why they could be fired upon. Because you could see them if you looked, but that tower right in the middle, that stuck out. They had to vent the fucking the diesel gas power engines and shit. They had to vent that shit out somehow. And you can see it's actually 2 tubes, right? Because the other one had to draw the air in, at least theoretically. But the U-boats didn't go deep underwater. At the outbreak of the war, Germany only had 20 submarines available for combat, although these included vessels of the diesel engine U-19 class, which had a sufficient range of 5,000 miles and speeds of 8 knots, 15 miles per hour, or kilometers per hour, like 10 miles per hour, to allow them to operate efficiently around the entire British coast. By contrast, the Royal Navy had a total of 74 submarines. Through the mix of of mixed effectiveness. So you're saying Germany had 20 of them and were fucking everybody up. The Royal Navy had 3 times the amount plus, almost 4 times the amount, and lost? That doesn't make any sense. In August 1914, a flotilla of 10 U-boats sailed from their bases in Heligoland to attack Royal Navy warships in the North Sea in the first submarine war patrol in history. The U-boat's ability to function as practical war machines relied on new tactics, their numbers, and submarine technologies such as combination diesel-electric power systems developed in the preceding years. So they didn't have anything new. These are old technologies by this point. More submersibles than true submarines. See what I mean? More submersibles than true submarines. U-boats operated primarily on the surface using regular engines, submerging occasionally to attack under battery power. But again, just barely. They were roughly triangular in cross-section with a distinct keel to control rolling while surfaced, and a distinct bow or bow. During World War I, more than 5,000 Allied ships were sunk by U-boats. (1914 to 1918). So that would mean they're sinking like 1,250 boats per year, which is, you know, like 4 per day. Every single day. Every day of the year, they were sinking 4 ships. And what happened to all those ships? Did they all just, like, are we saying that after everything was said and done, they just went back and salvaged all of those ships from the bottom of the fucking ocean? 5,000 ships? Are you fucking kidding me? Stop it. Like, these are the kind of things that you just have to... The story's romantic and sexy and dangerous and all that. But when you actually step back and, like, think about it for a minute, like, does this make sense to you? 4 ships per day? That's as ridiculous as thinking the Germans were able to also eradicate 3 people every minute for a 4-year period. Let's see. The British responded to the German developments in submarine technology with the creation of the K-class submarines. However, these submarines were notoriously dangerous to operate due to their various design flaws and poor maneuverability. Gosh, that's weird. World War II. The Imperial Japanese Navy's I-400 class submarine, the largest submarine type of World War II. That's a submarine? It has a gun on the top of it. That looks like a boat. That looks like a ship. The fuck are you talking about? A model of Gunther Purin's U-47 German WW2 Type 7 diesel electric hunter. Fuck out of here. So stupid. This is just so stupid. It's a model. During World War II, Germany used submarines to devastating effect in the Battle of the Atlantic. Oh, we already had that. Where it attempted to cut Britain's supply routes by sinking more merchant ships than Britain could replace. These merchant ships were vital to supply Britain's population with food, industry, and raw materials, and armed forces with fuel and armaments. Although the U-boats had been updated in the interwar years, the major innovation was improved communications, encrypted using the Enigma cipher machine. The Enigma. Everybody else names their shit after themselves, but this guy's like, nah, let's call it the Enigma machine. Ooh, that'd be cool. That'd be super cool. This allowed for mass attack naval tactics, commonly known as Wolfpack, which ultimately ceased to be effective when the U-boat's Enigma was cracked. By the end of the war, almost 3,000 Allied ships, 175 warships, and 2,825 merchantmen, so exactly 175 ships and exactly 2,825 ships. Man, those are some nice round numbers, don't you think? Don't you think those are some nice, easy round numbers? They were sunk by U-boats. Although successful early in the war, Germany's U-boat fleet suffered heavy casualties, losing 793 boats and about 28,000 submariners out of the 41,000, a casualty rate of about 70%. Damn, son. Yeah. Oy vey. Can you take this thing?
I was going outside.
Okay, can you just wait like a second? Submarine.
Submarines.
Tell them how you didn't want to believe it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that, for shock factor, you could say they don't exist. And then you get all kinds of controversy and people arguing with you, blah, 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 blah. I think it's just like anything else. What they tell us, how they exist, is not accurate. Doesn't mean that, there's not a boat that goes underwater for short periods of time. But no, I mean, it's not something that you really ever think about or whatever. But when you look into it and you look at the stories that they tell you about it, it just it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Oh shit, I spilled a bunch of water. I'm in the process of moving all the plants outside that have been struggling to survive during the cold weather here in Michigan. And in most places you can do that at Mother's Day, but not here. Not if you wanted to live, which is the whole point of bringing them inside to begin with. So, and it's a bit of a mess. But it looks much better now. It looks much better now. It can breathe. So maybe some of these will do okay. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Hi. Stay. Yeah, so anyways, now I'm just got everything in place. Now I'm just trying to get it all watered. It's so boring. I'm just trying to get everything watered because it is dying. I can't get to this one. It's been a long winter. A long, shitty winter. It's hoping this year brings everybody a little bit more peace. Not looking for riches or anything, but just some fucking peace, man. And I don't care if that peace has submarines. Oh, that's nice. But for real, the different stories that they have you believe, it's just, when you're a kid, you don't think about it, and you just, oh, these are the stories, and this is how it happened. Uh-oh. Guys? Little Fritz is on the prowl down here. Tula's walking around. Come here. Somebody babysit him. He's in the cat tree under cow. And now he's in the kitchen. I think he wants a bottle. He's going to have to wait a minute. Everybody's going to have to wait. Where's he at? Come here, Nick. Nick, before he gets trampled by Tula. Hi, little dude. Hi, little dude. Hi, my little dude. Come here. You gotta go see your brothers. He's so cute. He's so cute and tiny. Dude, that's not happening. You're not just gonna eat a whole bunch of chips because you're hungry when you could go make a goddamn sandwich.
I'm not making nothing. I'm a child.
Okay, then you're not. Oh, bullshit. You were 15 and a half. No, that's not happening.
Fine, I'll make a sandwich.
Put the chips back. You're not eating all those chips. It's not happening.
Right. Help the old people out sometimes. All right. The Imperial Japanese Navy operated the most varied fleet with submarines of any navy, including Caitlin crude torpedoes, midget submarines, blah, 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 blah. We need to look something else up here. Okay, so here's the technologies, buoyancy and trim. So here's your average submarine, right? So that is the main ballast tanks right in the middle there. You're telling me that those tanks in the middle, filling up with water and pushing out water, can make this entire fucking thing go up and down? Do you understand how stupid you are to have to believe that? Especially since the water is like, it's in the shell on the outside. It's not even like it's the whole bottom of the vessel. But this is the shit that you believe. You don't even think to question it. So I'm going to controls and services, blah, 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 blah. The hull, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's all just dumb shit. Really, it is. The pressure hull, propulsion. Wow, there's a lot of bullshit with the propulsion. Sensors. And I mean, it's all just dumb, right? But wait. Let's go with nuclear submarines. A nuclear submarine is a submarine powered by a nuclear reactor, but not necessarily nuclear armed. We're just going to jump right to the history of it. The idea for a nuclear-powered submarine was first proposed in the U.S. Navy by Naval Research Laboratories physicist Ross Gunn in 1939. Ross Gunn. You guys have to understand, a lot of the behind-the-scenes work, a lot of to get to where I am, where I can just flow and crush all these pieces of shit friar arguments and whatnot, it takes hours of this. You got to go through it all. That's how you find the pieces. The Royal Navy began researching designs for nuclear propulsion plants in 1946. So he first was like, hey, we should maybe like use a nuclear sub. And they were like, okay. And then 7 years later, they were like, hey, let's start researching that thing he brought up. All right, that makes sense. Construction of the world's first nuclear-powered submarine was made possible by the successful development of a nuclear propulsion plant by a group of scientists and engineers in the United States at the Naval Reactors Branch of the Bureau of Ships and the Atomic Energy Commission. In July 1951, the U.S. Congress authorized construction of the first nuclear-powered submarine, the Nautilus. Wow, that's weird. That was the French called their first submarine, too. The Nautilus, under the leadership of Captain Hyman G. Rickover, USN sharing a name with Captain Nemo's fictional character Nautilus. So let's check out Captain Hyman G. Rickover. You want to talk about another holy shit kind of thing? This is an official portrait of him from 1955. Hyman G. Rickover. He's probably despised by the Jewish community. January 27th, 1900 to July 8th, 1986. Put your fucking boots on. Here we go, people. I haven't looked at this in a long time, so they might have changed some shit up. You would think, you know, having me do this is beneficial to them because it points out the holes in the story. And when you have shit like Eliezer Ben Yehuda, the guy who invented Hebrew, me pointing out what it said wasn't okay. They went back and changed it to make it fit more their narrative, even though it still doesn't. Hyman George Rickover was an admiral in the United States Navy. He directed the original developments of naval nuclear propulsion and controlled its operations for 3 decades as director of the U.S. Naval Reactors Office. In addition, he oversaw the development of the Shipping Port Atomic Power Station, the world's first commercial pressurized water reactor used for generating electricity. Rickover is also one of the 7 people who have been awarded 2 congressional gold medals. Shit is ridiculous. Rickover is known as the father of the nuclear navy, and his influence on the U.S. Navy, or on the Navy and its warships, was of such scope that he, quote, may well go down in history as one of the Navy's most important officers. Of course, it's a friar. Of course. Just again, strap in. This gets crazy. He served years of each of the U.S. Navy's 5 stars, Leahy, King, Nimitz, and Hasley, all of whom served on active duty for life after their appointments. Rickover's total of 63 years active duty service makes him the longest serving naval officer, as well as the longest serving member of the U.S. Armed Forces in history. Having become a Naval Engineer Duty Officer, EDO, in 1937, after serving as both a surface ship and submarine qualified unrestricted line officer, his substantial legacy of technical advanced achievements includes the United States Navy's continuing record of 0 reactor accidents. In the history of the United States Navy, they have never had a submarine accident. That's not how shit works. Right? What's up, Karen? So, you're going to expect a pretty impressive story here. Just watch. Rickover was born Chaim Gadala Rickover to Abraham. There we go again. Every single fucking time it's an Abraham. Isn't it amazing how many Abrahams there are? Abraham and Rachel Rochelle Lee Unger Rickover, a Polish friar family from Macau, Mazakowicz in Vistula land. His parents changed his name from Hyman or to Hyman, which is derived from Chayyim, meaning life. Chaim. L'chaim. He did not use his middle name Godalia, a form of Gedalia, but he substituted George when at the Naval Academy. Almost like he's hiding his friar identity. Weird how even in Hollywood they hid their friar identities, supposedly, even though they were all fucking friars. So who are they hiding their identities from? It wasn't like it prevented them from getting work or advancement or anything like that. The only people they could have been hiding from is us. They were hiding the narrative from us. They all knew it. Well, why did they all change their names? Why do they all hide their identities? Nobody else does that like they do. Chameleons. In 1906, at age 6, Rickover made passage to New York. He made passage to New York with his mother and sister, fleeing anti-Semitic Russian pogroms during the Revolution of 1905. Man, talk about a mistake on Russia's end. If Russia would have just kept him around. They joined Abraham, who had made earlier trips there beginning in 1897 to become established. Like, they say this a lot back then. Me personally, you know, the horrible skeptic I am, I go, wasn't traveling across the world expensive, time-consuming, dangerous? How did he leave his family behind? Who paid for and took care of his family? They were in the pogroms, the oppressed pogrom areas. Why would you leave your family there unprotected? Why not just take them with you and then just get established that way? What did he have to do by himself to get established? And how was that more financially feasible to have the two family units separated from each other? What were they, Western Unioning money back and forth? What the fuck are we talking about? You hear this shit over and over again in these narratives. And yet it just doesn't make any sense. It just really, it does not make any sense. Are we to say that back in these days, it was more economically viable and easier to travel around the world than it is today? Because nowadays, that shit's expensive as fuck. Takes a lot less time, too. Rickover's family lived initially on the east side of Manhattan, you know, the place that became the most valuable real estate in the fucking world. Gotcha. But moved 2 years later to North Lawndale, Chicago, which was a heavily Jewish neighborhood at the time, where Rickover's father continued work as a tailor. He had to go establish himself as a tailor. Rickover took his first paid job at age 9, earning 3 cents an hour, equivalent to $1.07 in 2025, for holding a light as his neighbor operated a machine. Because you're going to pay somebody to hold a light instead of just clipping it to something. Are you fucking serious? Like, these are just the dumb narratives that somebody comes up with, and somehow it passes inspection going, you know what? No Goyim's ever going to find this unless they're doing like a book report or something. And when you do a book report, you're not supposed to do it skeptically. You're supposed to regurgitate. So nobody will even think twice. Just put it out there. Who gives a shit? The computer spit it out. Just go with it. Rickover took his... Later, he delivered groceries. He graduated from grammar school at 14. So, not only is he excelling in school, but then after school he has multiple jobs, and still it's all just working out. It's all coming up Millhouse. Rickover attended John Marshall Metropolitan High School in Chicago and graduated with honors in 1918. So at 18 years old, nothing special there. He didn't finish early or anything. He then held a full-time job as a telegraph delivery boy. Telegraph boy delivering Western Union telegrams, through which he became acquainted with Congressman Adolph J. Sabbath, a Czech Jewish immigrant. Boy, what a fucking, they knew, or somebody that was like, hey, you're special. You're a telegraph delivery boy, but I know you're special. Let me bring you under my wing. What about this old man and this young 18, 19-year-old friar kid? What did they have in common that made them connect in the first place? How would they even know unless it came up almost immediately? Hey, here's your package. Are you a friar? Yes, I am. Well, let's talk. Like, that's the only way that works, right? Sabbath, and I'm sure this will be the first or the only time there's a serendipitous moment that shouldn't happen, but it does. I'm sure that's the only time. Sabbath, and his name is Adolph J. Sabbath, or Sabath, Sabath, doesn't have the two B's. Nominated Rickover for appointment to the United States Naval Academy. Why? He had held a light. He was a grocery delivery guy. And then he was a Western Union telegram guy. Why would you look at this obvious specimen, of course, you know, this specimen that he was all 5'2", 90 pounds, and be like, you know what? I'm going to nominate you for appointment to the United States Naval Academy. Rickover was only a third alternate for appointment, but he passed the entrance exam and was accepted. Well, that makes sense. Rickover's naval career began in 1918 at the Naval Academy. At this time, attending military academies was considered active duty service, due in part to World War I. Well, that's convenient. On June 2nd, 1922, 4 years later, Rickover graduated 107th out of 540 midshipmen and was commissioned as an ensign. Ensign is a junior rank of a commissioned officer in the armed forces of some countries, normally the infantry or navy. He joined the destroyer La Valette on September 5th, 1922. Rickover impressed his commanding officer with his hard work and efficiency and was made engineer officer on June 23rd, 1923, just a year later. He went from junior to official officer in 1 year, becoming the youngest such officer in the squadron. Man, he must have been kicking the ass. Western Union feels weird also. Wade also. I mean, it's just goofy. It's all just a goofy narrative. It sounds like a grok. It sounds like a fucking Chat GPT narrative. We want to create this character. Here's the basics. Give us the story. He next served on board the battleship USS Nevada. You have to pay attention to these dates and times. So this was the youngest officer on June 21st, 2023. Okay. Next served on board the battleship USS Nevada before earning a Master of Science degree in electrical engineering from Columbia University in 1930 by way of a year at the Naval Postgraduate School and further coursework at Columbia. Wait, what? By 1930, he is 30. And so, how do we go from he next served on board the battleship USS Nevada before earning a Master of Science degree in electrical engineering from Columbia University in 1930. Again, keep that date in mind. By way of a year at the Naval Postgraduate School and further coursework. He got his master's in a year? He does sound short enough to be able to stand up in a submarine. Well, there you go. You fucking just destroyed my whole argument, right? Jesus. You're dumb as shit. You can look up in the sky and see planes. I've been on planes. You've been on planes. These are completely different things. Airplanes are extremely simple compared to a submarine. But go ahead and keep being stupid. It's all good. I don't mind. I really don't. You make points that then I elaborate on and, you know, it proves you wrong. Again, if you think flying underwater is on par with flying through the air, like, have you ever been in the ocean or in the water? When you get to the water, like if you jump off of something in the air, you fall down. If you jump off of something into the water, if you're high enough, you'll splatter against the water. People that jump off bridges and shit, they die from the impact. You don't just, not like a nice cozy, bubble you fall in. No, it's like hitting cement. That's so hitting cement, going 30, 40 knots underwater, you think that's the same thing as flying through the air. Airplanes fly at 500 fucking miles per hour. If a submarine tried to go 500 miles per hour, it would be destroyed. But hey, it's the same thing, right? Body was so... You're all good, dude. You never have to apologize for any of it, dude. You do what you need to do. Rickover had a high regard for the quality of education he received at Columbia in a year, as demonstrated in this excerpt from a speech he gave at the university some 52 years after attending. Columbia was the first institution that encouraged me to think rather than memorize. My teachers were notable in that many had gained practical engineering experience outside the university and were able to share their experience with the students. I am grateful, among others, to Professor Moorcroft, Heery, and Ardent. Much of what I have subsequently learned and accomplished in engineering is based on the solid foundation of the principles I learned from them in the year that he attended the school. Rickover preferred life on smaller ships. Wait, Columbia University is in New York, right? Where's Columbia University? Columbia University, yeah, it's New York. Okay, so keep that in mind. Columbia University in New York. Watch. Just watch. This gets fucking crazy. He preferred life on smaller ships, and he also knew that young officers in the submarine service were advancing quickly. So, he went to Washington and volunteered for submarine duty. 1930s. Just going from New York to Washington, no big deal. His application was turned down due to his age at the time, 29 years old. Makes sense, right? Fortunately for Rickover, What's up, person? Fortunately for Rickover, he encountered his former commanding officer from Nevada while leaving the building, who interceded successfully on his behalf. Man, that sure is another serendipitous moment. He was on his way out, and he just happened to run into his old commanding officer, who was like, "What? They're not giving you what you wanted? Oh, well, let me jump in and fix that for you." Isn't that amazingly interesting? I wonder how many other people's entire fucking military career is based off of serendipitous bullshit like this. That sounds like it's, written for a fucking cheesy script that wouldn't even be successful because nobody would fucking believe it. Nobody would accept this shit. Twice now, he is not applicable. He is not, like, physically able, like, again, he's a tiny little friar. Nerdy guy. To think that they were just like, fuck it, let's just waive everything, we'll put you in. Yeah, fuck it. I know you're 29 now, let's just put you in there. Fuck it, why not? We don't normally do this, Oh, look, now the feed's getting fucked up. Walking out all Charlie Brown style. Head down. And as he's walking out, his old commanding officer is walking in. And he's like, "Hi, I'm Rickover. Gosh, I haven't seen you since the bonfire the other day where they were throwing cats and dogs in the bonfire, remember?" "Yeah." "Oh, what's the matter, Chaim?" "Well, these guys aren't giving me the Semitism I require." "What do you mean?" "Well, they say because I'm 29, 3 years after military cutoff, but prefer to have young guys in there. I'm 29 and they said no." "Well, they're not going to say no to you with me on here. Hang on, Hyman. I'll be right back." "I am Rickover, don't you know?" Like Roth. From 29 to 33, Rickover qualified for submarine duty and command aboard the submarines S9 and S48. Well, I thought he was doing a year of service of schooling at Columbia in New York. From 29 to 33, if he's commanding qualified submarine duty and command aboard the submarines S9 and S48, don't those not work? I'm sure there won't be anything else that conflicts with that. While aboard S48, he was addressed a letter of commendation, Jesus Christ, from the Secretary of the Navy, quote, "for rescuing Augustus Pessis from drowning at the submarine base Coco Solo Canal Zone." He saved someone from another fucking naval from drowning? They always have that. Always have their little, like, I'm telling you, just look up Robert Maxwell. You want to see some crazy, similar shit. While at the office of the Inspector of Naval Material in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1933, Rickover translated Das Unterseeboot, the submarine, by World War I German Imperial Naval Admiral Hermann Bauer. Rickover's translation became a basic text for the U.S. submarine service. You're telling me, before this guy came in who, had been in the United States since he was 6 years old. Before this guy came in, they never thought to have a German speaker translate this shit for them. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Do you guys not see what I'm saying here? This is fucking stupid. Why would they have never thought, hey, there's other German speakers. No, we gotta wait for some guy, 1933. It wasn't until 1933 that the United States government thought to have a German speaker translate some shit. Das Boot, das Unterseeboot. Unterseeboot. Just seriously, come on. Again, you can hate me all you want. This makes sense to you? On July 17th, 1937, he reported aboard the minesweeper Finch at Qingdao, China, and assumed what would be his only ship command with additional duty as commander. This is the highest ranking military serviceman in all the military, highest ranking naval officer of all time, or at least the longest serving. He was only a 4-star general, right? Because there was 5-star generals, right? And he only commanded one fucking vessel in his entire time. Gets better. With additional duty as commander, Mine Division 3, Asiatic Fleet. The Marco Polo Bridge incident had occurred 10 days earlier. That have to do with anything. Nothing. In August, Fitch stood out for Shanghai to protect American citizens and interests from the conflict between Chinese and Japanese forces. On September 25th, Rickover was promoted to lieutenant commander, retroactive to July 1st. So July 17th is when he reported to duty. July, August, September. Basically, he was in command for 2 fucking months. And then he was promoted to lieutenant, but they backdated it to July 1st. So even before he reported on board the ship on July 17th, they said that he was the lieutenant of the ship from July 1st. Do you understand how fucking stupid that is? Seriously. Again, hate me all you want. How does this make sense? How many other naval officers, high-ranking commanders and shit, had to answer to this guy who had served, who had fought, who had their lives on the line, who had, seen their friends get destroyed and had to swim from a ship? Wake the fuck up, people. In October, his designation as an engineering duty officer became effective, and he was relieved of his 3-month command of the Fitch at Shanghai on October 5th, 1937. Guys, the only time this super high-ranking guy in the Navy was in command of something, it was for 3 months, and he never saw battle or anything. Imagine being being anyone in the military and having to be subservient to this fucking guy. Rickover was assigned to the Cavett Navy Yard in the Philippines and was transferred shortly thereafter to the Bureau of Engineering in Washington, D.C. From Shanghai to the Philippines, now back to Washington, D.C. Once there, he took up his duties as assistant chief of the electrical section of the Bureau of Engineering on August 15th, 1939. On April 10th, 1942, after America's entry into World War II, Rickover flew to Pearl Harbor to organize repairs to the electrical power plant of the USS California. Rickover had been promoted to the rank of commander on January 1st, 1942. I love when they do shit like that. When they put it on January 1st. Like just, just nice, January 1st. And in late June of that year, he was made temporary captain. For what? He's like an engineering nerd. He has literally zero combat experience. In late 1944, he appealed for a transfer to an active command. He was getting razzed so hard, he finally wanted to go on an active command. He was sent to investigate inefficiencies at a naval supply depot in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. He wanted to be an active command, so he was sent to investigate inefficiencies at a supply depot in Pennsylvania. Then was appointed in July 1945 to command of a ship repair facility in Okinawa. Man, that is so much fucking travel. Was he proficient in Chinese and Mandarin and shit? Shortly thereafter, his command was destroyed by Typhoon Luis, and he subsequently spent some time helping to teach school to Okinawan children. What? What? You have this great mind, this high-ranking officer, and he's teaching children in Okinawa? Was Miyagi there? Later in the war, his service as head of the electrical section of the Bureau of Ships brought him a Legion of Merit and gave him experience in directing large development programs, choosing talented technical people, and working closely with private industry. Time magazine featured him on the cover of its January 11, 1954 issue. The accompanying article described his wartime service. Sharp-tongued Hyman Rickover spurred his men to exhaustion, ripped through red tape, drove contractors into rages. So he was an asshole. He was an entitled fucking asshole. And why wouldn't he be? When he doesn't get his way, serendipity steps in and fucking, gets him what he wants. He went on making enemies, but by the end of the war, he had won the rank of captain. He had also won a reputation as a man who gets things done. So, he rubbed everybody wrong. He made a bunch of enemies. And that is how you advance in the military. Do you guys see how fucking crazy this is? Naval Reactors and the Atomic Energy Commission. In December 45, now, this is where you have to remember the dates and stuff from earlier. They like to do this shit. Rickover was appointed Inspector General of the 19th Fleet of the West Coast and was assigned to work with General Electric at Schenectady, New York, to develop a nuclear propulsion plant for destroyers. In 1946, an initiative was begun at the Manhattan Project's Clinton Laboratory, now the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, to develop a nuclear electric generating plant. Wait a minute. He's associated with the Manhattan Project? I'm surprised. Realizing the potential that nuclear energy held for the Navy, Rickover applied. Rickover was sent to Oak Ridge through the efforts of his wartime boss, Earl Mills, who became the head of the Navy's Bureau of Ships that same year. So, are we saying, again, he was denied, but through some contacts he had, he was put. Became an early convert to the idea of nuclear marine propulsion and was the driving force for shifting the Navy's initial focus from applications on destroyers to submarines. Rickover's vision was not initially shared by his immediate superiors. Right. Again, same fucking thing. Having an underwater vessel that nobody else has is not seen as an immediate, like, holy shit, let's make that happen. What's up, Karen? Welcome back. He was recalled from Oak Ridge and assigned advisory duties with an office in an abandoned ladies' room in the Navy building. What? Nobody liked him, so they put him in a fucking bathroom. That is hilarious. He subsequently went around several layers of superiors, which is court-martial shit. Right? You don't overstep. You don't bypass your superiors in the military. Even if it's right, you still get in trouble for that shit. Not Hyman Rickover. And in 1947, went directly to the Chief of Naval Operations, Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz, also a former submariner. Nimitz immediately understood the potential of nuclear propulsion in submarines and recommended the project to the Secretary of the Navy, John L. Sullivan. It's amazing how many John L. Sullivans there have been. Sullivan's endorsement to build the world's first nuclear-powered vessel, the USS Nautilus, later caused Rickover to state that Sullivan was the true father of the nuclear navy. Right, because you can't just be like, yeah, that's me. No, you had to give the credit to somebody else. Das Boot. The original selection of Rickover as head of the development of the nation's nuclear submarine program ultimately rested with Admiral Mills. According to Lieutenant General Leslie Groves, director of the Manhattan Project, Mills was anxious to have a very determined man involved. Oh, yeah. Because, you're going to invent something. All the other people were like, we don't need a very determined man. And Mills was like, no, we need a very determined man. And they were like, this guy and his determination. Don't they know about serendipity? He knew that Rickover was, quote, not too easy to get along with and not too popular. But in his judgment, Rickover was the man on whom the Navy could depend no matter what opposition he might encounter. I mean, again, what has he shown that gives off this empirical, like this royal perception of him? It's not like he served and saved a bunch of people and, again, like Forrest Gumped his way through something. Why is this guy so revered? What has he done? He hasn't even invented anything or done anything yet. He was just an asshole. That's literally his claim to fame, is that he was an asshole and was really tenacious and would bother people until they did what he wanted. Or again, serendipity stepped in. Dick the Determined. I mean, this is so goofy. This is so fucking goofy. While his team and industry were completing construction of the Nautilus, Rickover was promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral in 1953. For what? Like, it just sort of shows you that the rankings, just like winning awards in Hollywood and shit, it's not really real. It doesn't really mean anything. Obviously, it means he doesn't have to listen to anyone lower than him, but like it's only based on popularity and popularity among those who matter. You know, how many times has the album of the year been, you know, the one that people were like, what? How did that win over this? How did that movie win over this movie? How was that person? Because it's all just fake bullshit. All those award shows are just fake bullshit. Ricker was promoted. However, this was anything but routine and occurred only after extraordinary chain of events. Huh. Well, that's weird. Let's read what those are. It turns into it turns into one of these where it's like, this is reading of something. Rickover's peers in the Navy Rickover's peers in the Navy's engineer branch thought to get rid of him through failure of promotion above captain. This would entail automatic retirement at the 30-year mark. But someone made the case to the U.S. Senate, charged by the Constitution with formal confirmation of military promotions. But someone did? Who was the someone? In that year, 1953, 2 years before Nautilus went to sea, the Senate failed to give its usual perfunctory approval of the Navy Admiral promotion list, and the press was outraged because Rickover's name was not on it. The press was outraged about this? Why is he even celebrity level? Just think about what we're talking about here. I still don't know anything that he's accomplished. Right? They haven't said that he was part of this or did that or accomplished, you know. There's nothing to sort of qualify or quantify his position. So what the fuck are we talking about here? And the press, the Friar press, is mad that his name wasn't on the fucking promotion list that they failed to give that year. They just forgot. They were just too busy. Ultimately, an enlightened Secretary of the Navy, Robert B. Anderson, he was enlightened, ordered a special selection board to sit. With some shuffling of feet, it did what it had been ordered to do. 95% of the Navy captains must retire regardless of how highly qualified, because there are only vacancies for 5% of them to become admirals. And although vindictiveness had sometimes played a part in determining who shall fail of selection for promotion, thus violating the system, never before or since have pressures from outside the Navy overturned this form of career termination. It only happened for him. Doesn't this sound really fucking weird? Especially considering he hasn't done anything to deserve his incredible position. Like, I know I've read this before, but I'm just so fucking shocked. Regardless of the challenges faced in developing and operating brand new technology, Rickover and the team did not disappoint. The result was a highly reliable nuclear reactor in a form factor that would fit into a submarine hull with no more than a 28-foot beam. That's the width, I believe. This became known as S1. The beam of the ship is its width at its widest point. Yes, beam is the width. This became known as S1W reactor. Nautilus was launched and commissioned with this reactor in 1954. Later, Rickover oversaw the development of Shippingport Atomic Power Station, the first commercial pressurized water reactor nuclear power plant. Kenneth Nichols of the AEC decided that Rickover Westinghouse pressurized water reactor was, quote, the best choice for a reactor to demonstrate the production of electricity, with Rickover, quote, having a going organization and a reactor project underway that now had no specific use to justify it. This was a reference to the first core used at Shippingport originating from a canceled nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. This was accepted by Louis Strauss and the Commission in January of 1954. Am I missing something? Or more, what am I missing? Because this just doesn't sound... like this is the highest forms of government? Of military? Sounds like they're just throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. Rickover was promoted to, and at the same time, it sounds like a fucking very carefully crafted conspiracy was at play. Rickover was promoted to Vice Admiral in 1958, the same year that he was awarded the first of 2 congressional gold medals. For what? He exercised tight control for the next 3 decades over the ships, technology, and personnel of the nuclear navy, interviewing and approving or denying every prospective officer being considered for a nuclear ship. Imagine that fucking power. For 30 years, this man was the sole decider of who was selected for, what was it? Being considered for every prospective officer being considered for a nuclear ship that's above and below the water. I mean, like, what else would he have been doing if not interviewing people every single day, all day long at that? Like, how many officers were in the nuclear naval division over that 30-year period? And that's those people that he approved. I mean, how many double, triple that did he deny? And really, like, what's the criteria for selection? It can't just be your numbers. It must be a willingness to keep a secret. A willingness to lie to everyone, your family, your girl, your mom, dad, whatever, your friends. Everyone. And how do you maintain a conspiracy of such prominence? You have one guy in control of all of it for 30 fucking years. Over the course of Rickover's career, these personal interviews numbered in the tens of thousands. Over 14,000 interviews were with recent college graduates alone. I mean, okay. Let's just say let's just go 30,000. That's like way less, right? 30,000 divided by 30 is obviously 1,000. So 1,000 divided by 365 would be roughly 3 interviews every single day for 30 years. And that's just if it's 30,000, which I'm assuming 30,000 is extremely conservative, considering 14,000 interviews were with recent college graduates alone. That's no days off, no holidays, no accidents, no vacations, no nothing. 3 every single day for 30 years. And that's if it's just fucking 30,000. When you look at the main mohel in the United States, like the main guy, he said that over his 30-year career, he had performed somewheres of 30, 40,000 of these metzitzas, which again means he would have performed 3 every single day without rest. Every day that you take off, every holiday, every fucking vacation day, every, Saturday, Sunday, I'm sure you're not working on the weekends. This ups the numbers on the rest of those days significantly. I'm supposed to believe that this guy is putting 5, 6 baby penises, well, at least 3 baby penises in his mouth every single day for 30 years. Now again, that'd be ridiculous because so you're saying on the days where he was working, it was more like 5 or 6, on any given day over 30 years. Do you know how just fucking insane that has, like, there's something wrong. These narratives aren't true. The interviewees ranged from midshipmen to newly commissioned ensigns, destined for nuclear-powered submarines and surface combatants, to very senior combat experienced naval aviator captains who sought commands of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. This guy was the end-all be-all. Does that even sound like like something that an intelligent military would do? And at the end of the day, we're talking about a man who supposedly converted to, he's a friar who converted to Protestant at some point in his 20s, I believe. The content of most of these interviews has been lost to history, though some were later chronicled in several books on Rickover's career, as well as a rare personal interview with Diane Sawyer in 1984. I don't even care. I'm not going to read the rest of that part. I want to go back to... It says focus on education. Here's a picture of him with Kennedy. When he was a child still living in Russian-occupied Poland, Rickover was not allowed to attend public schools because of his Jewish faith. Okay, so listen to this. Put this all together. This is the man who fucking made nuclear-powered submarines. Although he's not credited with any single thing, but let's just imagine the psyche of someone who grows up like this being in charge of the entire nuclear apparatus of the military. Do you think he had an unbiased perspective on Israel? Even though he's supposedly Protestant, you think maybe? Still living in occupied, he's not allowed to attend public schools because of Jewish faith. So, not allowed to go to school. Starting at age 4, he attended a religious school where the teaching was solely from the Tanakh, the Talmud, the Old Testament in Hebrew. That's all they learned about. Have you ever met anybody like that where they come from an only religious upbringing? Fucking Amish. But the Amish work hard. These guys don't work hard. But try to have a conversation about anything outside of, Amish, with one of these people, and they have no fucking idea. They don't know who anybody in history was. They don't know how things work. So this guy, that's where he comes from. Following his formal education in the United States, which again, what are we talking about? We said from age 4 he attended religious school where the teaching was solely this. Following his formal education in the United States, when was the break? Rickover developed a decades-long and outspoken interest in the educational standards of the U.S. being a national security issue, particularly as compared during the Cold War era to those of Soviet Russia. An example of his passion, I do not care. All right, let's see. I'm trying to find... All right, here we go. Personal life. Pay attention. Remember the dates, right? He was commissioned for a thing from 29 to 33, right? The submarine fleet, and was in command, supposedly, of 2 of those submarines. So from 29 to 33, that was his gig, right? Columbia University, though, he attended Columbia University for a year in 1934, where he attained a master's. While studying at Columbia University, Rickover met Ruth D. Masters, a graduate student in international law, with whom he married in 1931 after she returned from her doctoral studies at the Sorbonne in Paris. Sorbonne. They were married. You can come get it. Nobody here. Nobody wants to give any sort of debate. It's amazing. And her death in 1972, after which he married Eleanor A. Bednowitz. Weird, huh? He seems to like Jewish girls, but he's not Jewish. Hyman and Ruth Rickover had one son, Robert. Rickover's interfaith marriage caused a rift with his Orthodox Jewish parents. Rickover rarely saw his parents following his marriage, and they never met their daughter-in-law and grandson. However, sounds like they're really wonderful people, doesn't it? His parents basically disowned him because he fell in love. And then now we're getting fucked up, huh? Weird. Now we're getting fucked up, huh? Weird. Why are they fucking with my shit? Oh, sorry. Hyman and Ruth Rickover, however, he provided them financial support to get them through the Great Depression. Some biographers write that he converted to Episcopalianism and remained an Episcopalian for the rest of his life. Why would that be in question? Why wouldn't we just know that? His son Robert believed that his father had converted, although he stated that his parents had no interest in Episcopalianism, and he was sent to a Presbyterian church for confirmation, recalling that his parents considered it, quote, a social thing, and that it was the only time his father ever came to church. Right. Because he was a friar. Right? Sorry for not typing much. I had doing chores. Again, never apologize for anything, man. It's all good. According to author Rickover ceased to be a practicing friar, but did not convert and maintained an interest in friar life, donating all the proceeds from his books and speeches to a friar orphanage in Chicago. Why would there be a friar orphanage? Word sounds weird. Where did all these friar orphans come from? And if he wasn't friar, why would he donate all of the money he makes to one friar organization where they're seemingly creating children or you know, facilitating children. What a crazy coincidence, right? It's like when these friars come on here and, well, Benjamin Netanyahu gives lots of money to charity. Yeah, to friar charities. And then they in turn donate a shit ton of money to his campaign. So the money just comes back through. He wasn't Episcopalian. They sent him to get confirmation so that they could complete, you know, the chameleon disguise. That's all it is. And they literally say it. He had no interest in their shit. He only went to church the one time because, as quote, it was a social thing. During a visit to Israel in 1882, Rickover expressed pride in his friar heritage. Again, do you think that the man that was in control of the U.S. nuclear fucking, you know, the entire program, every officer that came through, do you think he never sold any secrets to Israel, never gave any secrets to Israel? Do you think he had a negative viewpoint on anything Israel at any given time? I mean, seriously, what are the chances that this is how this narrative goes? It's not Chinese, it's not Arabic, it's not Australian, it's not Eskimo. It just has to fit into this one specific category where they try to pretend like, well, we don't necessarily know if he was a practicing friar or not, but he did give all his money to the friars, and he did visit Israel and express his pride in his heritage, and he only did the church thing for appearances, and like, what the fuck? Why is there even a question at this point about any of this shit? And you still believe the narrative of submarines? Still believe it, huh? You don't think something weird's going on? I mean, again, to think anybody that grew up grew up in very, very, not just like in a Jewish household, but in a very, very Jewish household where he wasn't even allowed to go to school with us and was consistently told how much we hate them. And thanks to serendipity on multiple occasions, he became the last word in who served in the military when it came to nuclear, you know, submarines and all sorts of crafts. Everything nautical. Think about how fucking insane that is, right? I just don't even know, man. To me, this just seems so goddamn ridiculous. Rickover has been called the most famous and controversial admiral of his era. None of you have heard of this guy. He was hyperactive, blunt, confrontational, insulting, and a workaholic, always demanding of others without regard for rank or position. Because none of them, like, he was above all of them. You're all Goyim here to serve me. I am the guy. Moreover, he had, quote, little tolerance for mediocrity, none for stupidity. Even while a captain, Rickover did not conceal his opinions, and many of the officers whom he regarded as unintelligent, eventually rose to be admirals and were assigned to the Pentagon. And yet this guy is the guy making the end-all be-all decision when it comes to nuclear fucking subs and ships and shit? And like, what the fuck are we talking about? Rickover frequently found himself in bureaucratic combat with these senior naval officers to the point that he almost missed becoming an admiral. 2 selection boards passed him over for promotion, and it took the intervention of the White House, U.S. Congress, and the Secretary of Navy before he was promoted. And he never did anything. He was in command of a vessel for 3 months. And much of that was he didn't even serve. He wasn't even on the vessel. Like the Navy didn't want to do it, but the friars above in the government, the Congress, the Secretary of the Navy, they had to step in to give him the promotion that he wanted. He wanted a promotion. He wanted more stripes. So they gave it to him. You guys not... I can't be the only one that is just... like, floored by this, but inspired as hell. Like, okay, I'm right. I've been right. Like, this is... If the story behind the thing is bullshit, the thing is bullshit. Who the fuck is building aircraft carriers? Where did those things come from? That's the next thing you need to look into. And how the fuck did we get those? Rickover's military authority and congressional mandate were absolute with regard to the U.S. fleet's reactor operations, but his controlling personality was frequently a subject of internal Navy controversy. He was head of the Naval Reactors Branch and thus responsible for signing off on a crew's competence to operate the reactor safely, giving him the power to effectively remove a warship from active service, which he did on several occasions. The view became established that he sometimes exercised power to settle scores, although author and former submariner Ed L. Breach Jr. referred to him as a tyrant with, quote, no account of his gradually failing powers in his later years. No account of his gradually failing powers. Oh, Jesus. There's a little scandal involved with him. I just I think it's weird. Combine that with Cornelius Drebel. Like, compare the two men. Cornelius Drebel is this blip. This person that you would only know if I told you. Hyman G. Rickover is the longest serving. Like, it wouldn't take you very long to stumble across Hyman G. And apparently he was a huge celebrity of his time. It's right there, guys. It's right in front of you. All you got to do is look at their source. Wikipedia is their thing. It might not be true, but it's the truth they want us to know. Everything that comes out of this is balanced and Zionist in nature. Does that sound balanced and Zionist in nature to you? The father of the nuclear program is a friar, who might not have been a friar, but he was a friar. Like, again, do you think there's any possible way a man that grew up like he did and then showed his proclivity throughout his years Do you think there's any possible way he was unbiased when it came to Israel? When it came to Friar shit? Like, it's just, I think he meant curls, man. He's just dumb. These friars are the fucking worst, man. They are the worst. And it's so obvious. All they're doing is lying. Believing they have these major fucking awesome ass submarines. What are the chances that you're gonna get a boat? You're gonna, get a bunch of money, buy yourself a real nice ship, outfit it so it can handle the harshest conditions and all the survival shit necessary. And then go out and try to get to the South Pole or some shit. What are the chances you do that knowing that they have submarines that could come out of anywhere and kill you? You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just believing October 2. Yeah. That's it. You saw movies, you've seen cartoons, you've seen this narrative shown to you giggity times, but you can't say you've ever actually seen it. Maybe you've seen, but again, you don't know how deep that thing was. Anyway, fuck everything Friar, fuck everything Israel. Go get your free download and all that good stuff. The links are in the description. I'm not going through it. I'm exhausted. Have yourself a wonderful day. And you pedophiles, you kill yourself. Beep.